Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sao Paulo and the Brazilian Series of Poker 2024. This is the BSOP main event, day 6. We're joining the action towards the end of the event. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players remain, and these guys are playing for a first place prize of approximately 240,000 US dollars, about 1.45 million reais. Hello, everyone. It's Nick Walsh on comms, joined by Chris Tergalis.
Hello, hello.
He's here. And also joined by Senor Spraggles. How you doing, Spraggy?
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
That's right. Hello, guys. And these are the chip counts, guys. So a pretty small average chip count, I would say. 14 big blinds at the bottom, 30 big blinds up top. So I don't anticipate this is going to run that much longer. This is towards the end of the final day, of course, guys. And this would have finished in the early hours of this morning UK time, assuming you're near that, if that makes sense. So there we go. This is where we're at. 30 million up top, 14 million at the bottom, and we are going to play down to a winner today. How you guys doing out there in Twitch chat? We are on Twitch, which means we can interact with each other. So make sure you get your comments and your questions in the chat. We have two amazing celebrities joining us on comms today, guys. So make sure you're making full use of PokerStars Strag and Senor Spraggles for their excellent poker analysis.
Wow, I think it's the first time I've ever been called a celebrity.
I thought you were going to say about the expert poker analysis.
Oh, that's a given. That's a given.
That's the bit I'm worried about providing. That was a very high pressure intro from Nick Walsh there.
Well, after our game in Leeds, Spraggy, I think you are clearly the expert poker player amongst the three of us. So.
We don't talk about what happened at Leeds. It's not a thing. It didn't happen.
What happens in Leeds stays in Leeds.
That's right. That's right.
Or get shared on social media. So yeah, pretty interesting last six we have here. A couple. I was looking up the players as we were coming into this, and first of all, I'm very interested to see how Brazilians play live. I watched a little bit of the stream the other day, but obviously we have a lot of impressions of Brazilian players from the online results. So I'm fascinated to see how this kind of plays out. But then also kind of with the addition of we have the Argentinian in the mix as well. Looked him up. He was the chip leader coming into this final table, by the way.
Yeah.
So interesting that he's fallen a bit down the ranks.
Yeah, we've had a couple days of really excellent coverage here from the BSOP. We had the event on Monday. We had the Legends events on Wednesday night as well. And now we joined for the final finale of the main event. Final 6. It looks like they got tons of chips, guys. It's not many big blinds, so I do anticipate a bit of a bloodbath here.
Those are some pretty hefty stacks for the amount of big blinds.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we do some chip ups, guys? Jeez.
I was going to say that's the first thing I like is it's a little bit old school, huh?
Yeah.
It is very, very old school. Like when you watch those old WSOP main events where there's
mountains,
chip pyramids, chip towers going on.
Do you think
it's just a dealer's nightmare?
Do you think that we've regressed, guys? Like I appreciate that if you're just going to play a tournament untelevised, that's just nonsense, right? But should we bring that back for our main event stuff? Should we just go to the final with absolute mountains?
No.
Nah.
No. It slows the game down so much. And it's just an ego thing. And when you're early on in the tournament, you get those opportunities to be, to have tons of chips.
Yeah.
So it's not like you never get to do that.
Sure.
But when the money matters and you want the tournament to keep moving along, keep the chips in play, reasonable. Let's keep things moving.
Right. So this is a thing that we do at the BSOP, guys, which we don't usually do, is we announce the dealers. And thus far, we've had a great lineup, some really excellent dealing. This guy goes by one name. It's just Alvaro. He's like Seal or like Prince. He just has the one name.
Spraggy or Strag.
Yeah, or Strag, indeed. That's the sort of thing when you get to a certain level of celebrity status, Strag, as you've just been introduced, you have just a moniker like that. It's absolutely fine. This dealer's clearly one of the top on the Brazilian circuit. He's earned one name.
I love the fact they're recognizing the dealers. They claps in the chat for dealers, man. They work so hard.
Yeah.
And don't get appreciated.
Oh,
I'm one of those people, when somebody at the table is abusing the dealer, I'm going to speak up.
Oh, 100%, yeah. No, and look, can we just appreciate that pitch? That's a very stylish pitch, and I think poker is all about style points. Also, Spraggy, really important question. I know you might have addressed this in London when we were doing commentary, but do you have a favorite suit?
We've been through this before, Nick, haven't we? We've been through this before. Those who are watching in London will remember my answer, and it's no, because I'm an adult. Same as having a favorite color. Once you get past
that
the
lives
age of
rent-free in
6,
my head.
I think you're done.
It lives rent-free in my head. That's all. I had to bring it up. It was too funny, man. Killed me. Yeah, Strag, we were doing commentary with Caitlin Komeski, and she's trying to keep the flow going. We're doing commentary. Turns to Spraggy, goes, Spraggy, do you have a favorite suit? And he goes, no, because I'm an adult.
Way to make the new ambassador feel
welcome, Caitlin. That's the sort of working relationship you can expect from me.
Just draw a line in the sand right now so we know where we're at. Perfect. All right, guys, so play recommences. Six-handed. By the way, guys, can we talk about this field? 3,093 players. Jeez.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Obviously, poker alive and well in Brazil. One of these days, I'm going to make my way out there. I saw that Joe Stapleton got a chance to play in the main event.
That's right.
So surprised we're not seeing him here at the final table.
I know, honestly. Why do we do it to ourselves? He should have been here. He should have made it. Guys, this was a $665 US buy-in, approximately 4,000 reais. And you'll note that first place is $240,000 US. So really a huge payout for the in relation to the initial buy-in.
And as I was saying, Nick, I did look these players up on Hendon Mob. A couple of them don't even have a Hendon Mob. For Cloudomir Morandini, $47,000 in live cashes total. Wow. So obviously this is going to be not only their largest live cash, but very likely to be their to double their lifetime earnings. And a real interesting one in one of our players. I'm trying to figure out who it was again. Who actually final tabled this event last year.
Yeah, that's right. So it was fourth last year, wasn't it?
Right. I think it's Guedes, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So presumably in quite a similar field as well, Strag, of, like a mass field.
Yeah, the exact event came in fourth for $92,250 US. So nice. Slightly less than what fourth is playing, or more than what fourth is paying this year.
Spraggy, what's your biggest score today, buddy? Online, offline?
Oh, crikey. UCouty Brighton.
Yeah.
Biggest live score.
That was
for
82.
Whatever that was. Yeah, 82 US. And online. Oh, here we go. Oh, he's folded. That makes more sense. Online, like 70 something.
Yeah.
Which is wild. I've never had a 100K score, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not obviously that wild. You've seen how I play. But like maybe 4 or 5 around 70,000.
I didn't want to use the word embarrassing, but yeah, you're right. It's
humiliating, embarrassing, sort of shows me up as a fraud in some senses. Absolutely. I agree.
Absolutely. Hey, Strag, you remember that one time I almost won $1 million?
I do, actually.
Oh, because I don't like to talk about it.
It wasn't the Sunday Million anniversary, was it?
No, we don't talk about it. We don't even have a command in chat for it, so we don't like to discuss. Anyway, cards back in the air.
Chat for that. Wow, that was a great run though. It
was a ridiculous run, and even better was I think Strag saw more of it than I'd like to admit, and he knew at the start of the final day there was 1 or 2 run good moments that kept me alive.
yeah, you won your flips, and that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
By the way, let's shout out to the back of the hoodie on the 6C. As everybody knows, I'm a big fan of poker wear, and I don't know if you guys caught it when we get that camera shot again, but kind of hand of poker on the back of that hoodie looks very cool.
Spraggles, do you still offer merch on your website? Is there still Spraggy wear out there?
There is some Spraggy wear out there, yes. Limited options at the moment. That's something that I've always wanted to do more with, but I think you can get some stuff with the Spraggy logo on.
Yeah.
But you're right, Strag. This is a lot cooler than anything I'm offering at the moment.
I found some
by quite a margin as well, frankly.
I'm just going to look on Temu for the Spraggy stuff.
Is the Spraggy tracksuit still available, or was that Ultimate Limited Edition?
No, Spraggy tracksuits are available now.
Okay.
Mugs, caps, hats, usual.
Yeah, deal.
Usual fare.
Well, I
Look
know
at
what
that-
I'm
look
getting
at
for
that.
Christmas.
Look at that trophy. Beautiful. Who cares about the money? You want the trophy.
I have to say, Strag, the trophies over the last couple days have been exceptional, like really, really good. Including, of course, on Wednesday, our coverage of the 250K Hayes buy-in, which meant that it was the biggest ever LATAM buy-in event in history. And they just they just wanted everyone to be well aware of what was going on, so they just put 250K right on the trophy. It was just printed right there in text.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
I will say, from what the coverage that I've seen of BSOP, the presentation aspect of it, the sort of pageantry, if you will,
Yeah.
I guess, is really, really good. They do a very good job of making it feel prestigious, important.
Yeah.
I mean, as important as it is, right? We're playing for
Right.
trophies and titles and acclaim and all the money as well, of course. But like the main event intros, the final table intros,
Right. Right.
it's all very well presented.
I agree, mate. If we actually had the opportunity to play from the very start of today, like Spraggy said, there's an introduction, people come out, there's music, you know, like I think that's really fun, and it doesn't take a lot of extra effort to do, but when you do it, I do think it makes it feel really special. And you know, Brazil has become a poker playing nation, so I think it makes sense that we would celebrate that.
Well, and poker is now a recognized mind sport by the Mind Sport Association, and we need to start acting like it. We need to start celebrating our people more.
Yeah.
And I love this kind of
Yeah.
introductions and making a big deal about the people who have accomplished something.
Yeah.
And
And
believe me, making a final table is an accomplishment.
I think it goes some way towards, you know, unstigmatizing poker as well. For a long time, you know, I have friends that said, oh, I would never tell my family that I play poker. They'd be worried that I was gambling or whatever. You know, of course, poker is a gambling game. There is a huge element of gamble, absolutely. There's a huge element of variance, but it is nice that we're starting to recognize it as a mind sport as well.
Long overdue.
Long
Surely.
overdue.
Long overdue in most senses, yeah. I mean, it makes sense to anybody who has sort of rudimentary knowledge of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you start playing poker, you realize that there's a little bit more to this than
Yeah. Yeah.
blackjack or anything like that. It's
Just
completely different
completely
endeavor.
different feel. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Completely different energy, completely different feel, and you just know that there's more. There's a deeper element to it, 100%.
Quite noticeable. I think we've seen 2 or maybe 3 hands that have been revealed so far pre-flop after a lack of pre-flop action. You don't need to show your hands, but we saw the jacks go face up against the ace that was folded, and then we've just seen another hand show down there. It's quite telling, maybe, the spirit in which the game is being played.
Yeah.
That players are willing, especially on a final table, to give up information freely.
I mean, you should have seen the action at in the 250K. That biggest event ever in LATAM history, and they were so chatty. They were showing their hands. They were laughing. They were joking. It was like a cash game. It was like a 1-3 cash game. It was insane how open and friendly they were. But also, Sprague, you'll know this from our group chat. I know that an ambassador mentioned this who was out there playing. I think it was Ceros. I think it was Gutierrez who mentioned it. But basically, all players were given these green cards where you could do a rabbit hunt. That was a feature of a lot of the higher stakes games. And actually, Strag, you'll like this. So basically what they've done is they said...
I hate rabbit hunt. I hate rabbit hunt.
Well, no, so I think that's what happened is they're going, look, we don't really care to rabbit hunt. We're not really, you know, people that are worried about that. So what they've been doing is they've had an agreement that is external to the actual rules where if you rabbit hunt, your opponent has to show their hand. And in particular, in situations where it would be televised in 30 minutes' time. So it's kind of been this sort of unspoken or spoken or agreed, you know, sort of unofficial rule that when you rabbit hunt, your opponent has to show you what they had in a situation if you folded, for example. And so far, we've actually seen that honored pretty much every time that the green cards have gone in. Yeah.
This is one of those things where, like, I'm a purist. I don't like rabbit hunting. I think that gives away information you don't have a right to know. Not only about what would have come, but it also can eliminate holdings that your opponents could have had. Right.
Yeah.
So in that sense, what they're doing, I actually kind of agree with that because it is, you know, but I mean, it's the whole thing just bothers me. Like I don't like it. And,
well, so it was mentioned by Elias, and he sort of said, I think this is really fun. We should consider doing this for EPTs. And then the sort of and the sort of group agreement was, yeah, that does sound fun and that is interesting, but also there's no chance we're going to do this unless it's, you know, a super high roller or something where, you know, it's not going to slow down the game because that's a nightmare, you know.
Or do it in a meetup game or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
sure.
You know, do it at a Lex Live, or when when Spraggy finally has his festival.
Spraggy Live.
You know,
Sure.
we'll come up with a better name than that.
Coming soon. But I think I agree. It's very fun, and like I'd imagine a lot of these high stakes events are quite close knit communities,
Yeah.
or like close knit player
Exactly.
pools where they don't care to wrap behind, like you say, but they quite often this agreement will happen anyway on the table. Something like this, some sort of added stipulation. Just seeing the action here, I think Ace King 10 flop, player out of position bets. There was a raise by player in position. Turn brings the 4-liner, Broadway straight. It's gone check check. And opponent very quickly checks the river. I would say that signals that not going to have many straights. Probably just bluff catching some sort of ace-8, ace-9. And given the speed of the check back on the turn as well, it doesn't feel like our friend here on the button in the hoodie is going to have a straight very often. Maybe considering a value bet with some sort of 2 pairs would be my best expectation. It's quite odd to be this deep into time banks and then make a bet. Yeah, it does check it back. We're going to see a showdown. There's that ace-6 that was bluff catching. But does it win? It does. Into the bin it goes after raising the flop and giving up, it seems.
Interesting hand there for sure. We've seen. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of hands go to showdown, and that might be the second one, I think, since we started the stream. And you talked about the table dynamic earlier, Spraggy. I also noticed there's quite a lot of just kind of raise and take it very early on, which, I'm not used to seeing at final tables like this. I think we tend to see a little bit more big blind defense, action pots. People kind of 3-betting. So interesting to see the dynamic difference here.
Yeah, I think that's can often be a product of we have a $600 tournament where we've got a lot of money up top. Obviously, you're going to have a mix of player types, abilities, and sort of desires. Especially in the early goings, you might just see a little bit of feeling things out, warming up for the day. Don't want to play any big pots early with so much money on the line. When there's such a big discrepancy in these big fields between your buy-in and the money that we're playing for, I think you most likely see folks tighten up a little bit, especially at these stack depths. We are, for some players, in all or nothing territory. So erring on the tight side of things.
Good shout there. Yeah, about how
be
short they are.
Too bad, yeah.
Should also mention, by the way, Jose Lesta, who was our chip leader coming into the final table, who is very short, does have almost $500,000 in lifetime earnings. So probably the most accomplished here at this final table, and has played played WSOP, has played some of our ESPT events, even EPT event played in Barcelona, cashed the main event in Barcelona. So yeah, as you said, a real mix of player types here. And like at least 2 people without a headed mob at all. So unless the spellings are different or what have you, yeah, very, very interesting.
I'm very keen to get to Brazil at some point, like you say, Strag. It's everything I've seen seems so much fun. I think that's the most, important word or important takeaway from what I'm seeing. It just seems like such a fun place to play poker. I know Parker really enjoyed his time down at the BSOP in the last few weeks. And Stapes, likewise, which is quite rare to get Stapes to enjoy playing poker as much as he loves poker. So, yeah, very keen.
Certainly is the most active I've seen him be on social media about playing poker, which sounds quite a lot. And yeah, great to see it. And I'm a big believer that poker needs to be fun. Poker's a game. Games are supposed to be fun. And sometimes we do take it a little bit too seriously. So any venue that where people are having a great time, we've seen it all in here.
Yeah, looks like applying some pressure with that big stack. I'm going to assume close to chip lead, given the 5 purple stacks in front. Just jamming blind versus blind. I think you're going to see a very wide range. And that's really, I feel like this is in particular a final table where, given the very low average and the money jumps, if you cover folks, you should just be all in a lot or raising a lot or applying a lot of pressure, because putting people into an all or nothing situation where you've got tens of $1,000s of pay jumps in play, the $600 buy-in can be a very powerful thing. Obviously, it just takes a lot of sort of confidence, belief, because sometimes you're going to get snapped by aces and it's going to suck. But most of the time, you're going to be able to just run pretty wild at a table, given how incentivized everybody else is to fold, right, to stay alive.
Speaking of tournaments that are a lot of fun, Spraggy, you got a chance to play in the 50-50 at the Women's Festival, right?
I did, yes.
Wasn't that the most insane atmosphere? Like I'm still buzzing. I thought it was so much fun.
I really thought that the entire atmosphere of the Women's Festival was really one of the best that I've played in.
Yeah.
In particular, the 50-50, it was, you know, half men, half women, 50-50 mix, of course. And I've never really seen so many people just playing and having a good time. It
was nuts, yeah.
I said to Kerry Jane, actually, if we judge live events are there for people to come and have a good time, the vast majority of people play the game socially. All they want to do is enjoy it. Then the Women's Festival should be judged as one of the best events of the year because everybody had a great time. And,
I agree.
You know, that's the point of poker in a live environment for the vast majority of folks. So
I think that was very smart as well to do the 50-50 because we have to remember that when we have women's event, what we're trying to do is create an environment that it's inviting and non-threatening and you know, like, you know, a little bit more comfortable for people that feel really overwhelmed with the fact that it's such a male-dominated sort of activity. But then also remind ourselves that the whole point of that is that we all end up playing together, you know, in force rather than just being a segregated separate thing. And everyone was just saying that was their favorite tournament of the year, and it was a relatively low buy-in. But yeah, I'm really proud of Kerry Jane. I think she did a great job, and I think that was actually a really cool event, and it was super duper fun.
That was a cool addition. I particularly enjoyed it because I was having a nice time. Obviously, was there with Marley. She was playing a lot, and some of her friends and other women that I know in poker. I was there hanging out and doing whatever, but they kept announcing, you know, this is open for registration, this tournament's open for registration, and the first 2 days I was just so eager to play and get involved. So it was really welcome.
It was nice to sneak in there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The vibe was so good, and then we were excluded, and it was like, okay, cool, let's get to Saturday. Let me jump in.
So we saw the open here, by the way, from Morandini with the ace-king, and a surprise defend here from Guedes on a relatively short stack with a 9-6.
Yeah, and not a board where the ace-king's going to be particularly excited. Obviously, we have to be a little bit more cautious on the monotone board, especially with 2 black cards in the hand, but a small c-bet will take it down, gets out, and gets away unscathed.
Yeah, quite fortunate that opponent didn't have a heart, literally and figuratively.
And this is the problem with defending 9-6 here, right?
Yeah.
Is you, even if you make a pair, a lot of outside of final table situations, you're able to continue these hands, or with a little bit more depth in the stacks, you're able to continue these hands. And that's why the defend can be good, it can be profitable, because you might find a check raise bluff occasionally, you're going to find a call on the flop. But in a final table environment, when you're a lot more restricted, even if you flop a pair like this, you end up just having to let it go versus one bet. So it's really going to kill any EV you can pick up with the pre-flop defend.
And with these stacks so close together and so short, you really, like, missing out on an extra big blind or big blind and a half, that's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. Yeah, I mean, at the top of the show, we saw the stacks, like, chip leader just around 30 and the shortest stack around 16. So even, like, 1 or 2 blinds, like you say, Strag, it's very, very expensive to lose a couple of blinds. We'll see how Gabriel Hafner proceeds here in the cutoff. Now, I do play with a Brazilian player online called, might be a different spelling of Havana, G Havana. I'm curious now, but we'll treat Gabriel as an unknown for now. Raises it up to 2 million and runs into a quite immediate reshove from the player on the button with King Jack. It is just 8 big blinds. I think the problem for Ace Deuce is so often you're going to be dominated here by a stronger Ace X hand, and we can look at it and say, but it's only 6 big blinds, but as Strag just alluded to, 1 or 2 big blinds is big. Pay jumps in play. You can't just call off 6 bigs as if you're playing for chips and you're, you know, 40, 50 blinds deep. So we might just see, and we do, Ace Deuce has to lay it down just for the extra 6 bigs.
Yep, that's like you were talking about, Spraggy, max pressure. And that's what's needed here, and we are on the shallower side, generally speaking.
Yeah, but one of the things we should probably mention as well, apparently at the start of the final table, they did decide to slightly modify the payouts, took a bit off of the top end, top 5 or 6 places and gave it to 7th, 8th, and 9th. Really interesting. It kind of talks to what you mentioned about the buy-in size Spraggy and maybe a little bit of fear factor and the money mattering. Not something we're used to seeing, certainly something well within the rules to do, but very interesting that they decided to kind of smooth the payouts a bit and gives fairly significantly more to 7th, 8th, and 9th. I think 9th got almost 50% more than they would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's completely understandable, completely reasonable. As spectators, as mere enjoyers of the game, we'd obviously rather infinite up top and action that's a lot more punishing, perhaps. But say when players are playing for $600 buy-in, maybe there's some satellites and whatever been offered as well. To be able to lock up 29K for 9th, very important.
Oh, there were definitely a lot of satellites into this event. I think and the PokerStars alone, I think we sent through silver passes alone well over 100 players.
Very cool, very nice. So we are going to see another raise and take it there. Interestingly, pocket 7s, I believe, on our graphic was the strongest hand marked.
Yeah.
Which was incredible foresight because King 7 and 7-3 right there, they're actually drawing. Well,
I
not
saw
dead,
the same
but,
thing.
not dead, but almost. But definitely a spot there where the 7s could, in some other situations find a collision. But once again, this big stack raises with the 10s, raises and takes it. Oh, wow, we have a Silver Power Path emote on Twitch now as well. Look at that. Wonderful.
We did have a, when I said I looked up the players, our chip leader, who I believe that's Fernando Ficus, one of the people I couldn't find on Hindenmob. So really interesting. Clearly knows what they're doing.
Yeah, seems to be using his stack so well so far. We have a list of the most recent Silver Power Pass winners at all? From, say, Power Paths within the last 2 to 3 days?
Have you won a Silver Power Pass?
It's funny that you should bring it up, Strag. I have.
Who knew?
I'm a little bit ashamed to. I don't know if I want to say how it sort of came to pass. We do see another all-in from Fernando here. This time with the Ace Queen, blind versus blind, and again free information given. Ace in the mark. This is a good fold though. Strag, when you go to a PokerStars live event, one of our great PokerStars live events, and you can, for attending, sometimes if you attend and you play events, you'll get tickets dropped into your account.
Yep.
That happened to me, and it was a $55 step 4 ticket for the Power Path, and from that, I have won the Silver Pass. Wow. So, I mean, thank you, PokerStars.
Literally from nothing. Literally
from nothing.
What a guy.
Well, from my attendance, I guess, at an APT.
Oh, and you did quite a few buy-ins there. So good for the poker ecosystem. We appreciate that, Spraggy. And
that means I'll be back. I'll be back to another live event in a 1K, and I get a 550 cup as well. So,
speaking of 1K, speaking of fun poker, I'm so excited. Guess what starts this Sunday?
The finale of the PokerStars Stars season.
I said starts. It is satellites to the Irish Poker Open.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
starting already.
That is exciting.
Well, you say about sending 100 qualifiers from PokerStars to the BSOP main event. I know that the Irish Open is one of our biggest.
Yeah, sure.
Every year we send loads of people to the Irish Open.
We sent, I think, last year over 600.
What?
I'm not wrong. It was a ridiculous number.
That's
it was
insane.
A ridiculous.
That's
it might have been
insane.
between us and Paddy Power that we did that. But
yeah.
It was just an absolutely nuts number. I am so looking forward to this year. We're gonna have. There's a ton more events on. There's mixed games going on. I'm just trying to figure out just exactly how much time I can spend away from home for this. But like, if I can do the whole 2 weeks, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, guys. If you haven't checked out the schedule yet, go and take a look because it's expanded greatly, and it is just maybe the best event of the year. It's so good.
And here we go, really, our first very intriguing three-way situation here. One of our first pots headed to a flop. It is 6-6 deuce, so queens with the raise. and understandably, both players missing given the card removal effects in play.
And the player with the Jack-8 suited has the sort of 2-over cards in the backdoor diamonds, but only 8.5 big blinds behind, so I don't really think has the ammunition to do anything weird.
No, options limited. And we see the c-bet from the queens, and barring a moment of madness,
Yeah.
the queens are going to take it down. Irish Open, yeah. I mean, it's this extended schedule is...
And showing free information again. What?
Why not? It's exciting that it's extended to 2 weeks, but it's quite troubling for people who go to that event and enjoy Guinness. Sort of getting older and enjoy it over the course of 1 week, and now it's stretched out to 2 weeks. But we'll see how we go.
I feel personally attacked. Thank you, Spraggy.
I was worried about us all day, in particular myself. And
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
So what you need to do is alternate days. 1 day Guinness, 1 day whiskey. 1 day Guinness,
right.
There you go.
So the most important question, though, I know we've seen the schedule and all that nonsense, but will the Crackden be making a revival? Is there any universe? Is there any universe where they don't bring that back? That might have been the sickest rave to happen adjacent to a poker tournament in the history of poker.
The jewel in the crown, wasn't it?
It was great.
Yeah, it was really good. I also had to dress up as a horse and get rugby tackled by Finton Hand in the rain.
Can we just? I know you and Finton have been friends for a long time. I feel like that was personal, dude. I think that
was pretty vicious. I was there for that.
That was savage.
My mum was particularly upset watching the footage. She was. She's like, next time I see Finton, he's in big trouble. It's a lot of fun. Irish Open's so much fun.
It really is. It is. It's just like a big giant home game, and everybody's having a blast. Nobody goes anywhere. It's not like when you go to Barcelona, for example, right? When people bust out, they're like, "There's Barcelona. Let's go out and explore Barcelona." Like everybody busts out at the Irish Open. It's like, it's Dublin. We're gonna stay here and drink.
Yeah.
Strike, what are your feelings on the sort of move to the RDS? So we've been at the RDS now since since my first attendance, but I know that it used to be sort of at, what was the other place called? City West?
City West. I mean, City West wouldn't be as bad as it was back in the day because there is public transport nearby now,
right.
Whereas back in the day you were kind of isolated out there. It had a little bit of a vibe though when you were there of like you're in the venue, nobody was going anywhere, and you had things like, it'd be 2 a.m. and Devilfish would be playing piano in the hotel lobby. Kind of, right? Like that was cool. That was a lot of fun. And you had Mick McCluskey in the bar, telling stories, and it just, that kind of almost like a lock-in vibe.
Yeah.
But, again, the advantage of it being at the RDS, obviously we need the space. RDS was huge, but I think City West was huge, but RDS is just, it is that much bigger.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, again, that proximity to, like, if you do, also for hotels, right? It makes it that much better for where, you've got a lot more optionality where you want to stay and not having to transit to the venue. Whereas when it was at City West, if you weren't staying at City West, it kind of sucked.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, the RDS has done a really good job, actually, of housing just insane numbers. The first year that I went to the Irish Open was when it was our first crossover with Paddy Power, and we were so successful in the numbers that we got that year. We were working like triple shifts to get it all done, and everyone was playing till 2 a.m. Because the main event was just that big. And obviously since then they've expanded even further, and we have even more room in there now, as well as the additional sort of bar and sort of venue on the other hand side of the tournament floor.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing they could improve at RDS is like we need more pub facility right on the poker floor.
The staff of 60 serving Guinness at their own individual taps just isn't filling demand. Small blind versus big blind here, guys. A little limp in the situation. King, queen of spades in the big blind.
16 bigs.
You'd imagine there wants to be some raising going on.
Yeah, and I feel like this might be strong enough, Spraggy, to kind of raise call if needs be. I think.
Yeah, I think we see some jamming of offsuit
Right.
Maybe some raise calling of suited, something like this. I mean, even that is not, incredibly attractive.
Yeah, you're not thrilled about it. It just feels like a hand that's strong enough to kind of sort of side to it, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to want to keep some dominated hands in with the raise, good playability in position, king queen suited. So we do see the raise to 2.8 million there, which definitely seems like the optimal option. Of course, 6-7 is just going to let it go. We remain six-handed. No real fireworks so far.
Yeah, very little collision. But as we just saw with the chip counts guys, something has got to give here.
I think Irish Open, the expansion of it as well is allowing for more higher stakes stuff. It's a very cool festival, in that quite similarly to what BSOP, from an outsider's perspective, seems to be. You can play incredibly fun poker, $400, whatever. You can play a bunch of different games. There's a lot going on. There seems to be a lot of activities, festivities. But then, obviously BSOP as well, you had the highest buy-in event, right? Like the 250K. And that's kind of what Irish Open is. There are a couple of days where last year I played the 3K, and then there's a 5K. And then if you want your serious poker, you have that. And then the next day you can just, you're playing a, whatever, €300 turbo event, drinking as much Guinness as you can handle. So I use that term festival, I think, and I think that is quite a good one.
Yeah.
Because it is like a celebration of poker for not just high stakes players, but low stakes players and recreational players, and something where everyone can get involved.
Yep.
It is like a celebration of poker, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, as well as sort of more accessible buy-ins, it's still the same standard that we've come to expect from PokerStars events. The dealing is great. The floor staff are great. The actual structure of some of these smaller buy-in tournaments, sort of as luxurious as a smaller buy-in at an EBT or something. And there's something for everyone. There's a lot going on. The occasional Finton hand meetup game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did we end up doing that this year, or was it just 2 years ago?
I remember that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was one this past year.
Yeah.
I caused a real stir because they wanted to pay the bubble because Finton's Hannah was like short stack. Oh, no, actually, she had a load of chips. But they were on about paying the bubble.
Yeah.
And the floorman came over and was like, "You guys okay to pay the bubble?"
No.
And everyone was like, "Yeah." I jokingly go, "No," but the floorman doesn't realize that I'm joking. He's like, "Okay, next hand." Okay, right. Nobody bust this hand because I don't want to be the guy who denied paying the bubble. So then Hannah and it might have been with me. She played it with somebody else. She played a pot, and she's basically all in. Ends up getting called, ends up getting knocked out on that very hand where I denied paying the bubble. But then the floor came over and was like, "Okay, we're going to pay the bubble," and Spraggy, you're an idiot. But I was like, Finton's he's going to be very, very upset.
Oh, mate, honestly.
That might explain the tackle.
Yeah, there we go. And then a year later, it all came.
Yeah,
he came to a head.
He really bided his time.
Three broken ribs later, we were all friends again.
And, we see Guedes again, our previous year final table finisher, chipping up. Probably the danger at the table in terms of lifetime cashes and experience, at least live. We would expect, being Brazilian, that a lot of these players, if not all of them, would have significant experience playing online. We know there's been a huge explosion over the last few years. As noted in the chat from Russian Roulette for Rolls, I should say. I'm confused. If there are 5 Brazilians left, how does anyone bust? Because they're that good. They just never go.
Well,
That's it.
That's something that we've seen, So Griffin joined me for Monday's coverage and Wednesday's coverage of BSOP, the Legends event. Actually, I don't recall what the previous event was called again. Let me take a look at what we did. But in any case, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that the poker that we've seen out here in Brazil is what you'd expect. Very, very high-level stuff. I've never seen a group of 6 people navigate 12 big blind stacks for 8 hours in my life. It was insane, And to be fair, there were a few spots where just the shorties were getting it in bad and kind of doubling, but outside of that, just they were finding very creative ways of playing the short stacks and remaining in contention for the top spot. And that's kind of what we've come to expect from the Brazilians. Very talented country, a poker playing country, and a lot of fun to watch. And quite jealous of the fact how these guys are getting away from the hands they're getting away
far
from
too
correctly.
far too many walks though. Far too many raise and take-its. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that kind of poker.
Well, so yeah, I'm with you.
Well, what you've also seen, in particular online from a lot of Brazilian players, is in recent years, or maybe just more of a 2024 thing, you talk about stacks between 8, 15, 20 big blinds. The Brazilian, a lot of the Brazilian players, and filtering down, I guess, from the Brazilian pros, have sort of innovated a strategy and developed a new meta around very small 3-bets, sort of non-all-in plays, and now starting to see a development of more clicking pre-flop, even at like 15 blinds, where you'll see opens to, in particular, like FTs and ICM environments, min raising to 2, and 3-betting to like 4.5 blinds or 4.2 blinds, and doing it with hands like aces, kings, queens, and then just having these high-low offsuit ace-x or offsuit king-x, which really shifts the game from being raise and all in, like you say, Nick. Players with 8 big blinds, 10 big blinds, but when 1 big blind is worth so much, being able to make it 4 big blinds and fold and have bluffing ranges at these steps is really, really interesting development. We do see a more traditional all-in play here with the ace-10 offsuit from the hijack.
The king queen actually is the one that's all in.
Oh, the king queen is all in. Excuse me.
From the big blind, which is
from the big blind against the ace-10s open for the 12 bigs. And this again is a very, very close spot. Once again, it's Rick who's previously laid down the ace-deuce against king jack. This really comes down to how often you think the player in the big blind is going to rejam offsuit ace-x. If they start going pretty wild with like ace-4, ace-5 reshoving versus opens, then obviously we have a very profitable call. But it can be very, very dicey with the offsuit ace-10. You could just end up torching here on a final table if your opponent is too tight. So it's going to come down to a very player-based read.
And remember, Lesta was our chip leader coming into this final table, although when we started, our broadcast was down to 5th in chips, pretty much on the stack that we joined the broadcast from. Vinicus, not one of those players I was not able to find anything on, so...
Yeah, lays it down again. This is the power of the reshove, right? Like, it's much better to be the aggressor rather than the calling player, and having to, for sure run your equity when you call, but oftentimes if you're the jamming player, you don't have to run it. You're going to take it down pre-flop. Yeah, very interesting shift from a lot of Brazilian players to this sort of small 3-bet, small 4-bet style, which allows a lot of play around 15 big blinds. Now, whether we see that here, obviously it's quite like a sophisticated strategy. You have to be very confident in what you're doing, because it's quite unnerving to have 10 blinds, 3-bet to 4 blinds get shoved on and fold and keep 6.
Right.
So you have to be very, very in tune with what's going on. And like you say, with a mix of players at this table, we might not see too much of it. But Brazil, very innovative poker nation, very successful poker nation, and still sort of leading the way with some of the best players in the world.
I think a lot of these guys as well, having an online background, Spraggy, we've seen a lot of a big shift towards people sort of late regging, events, and just realizing that they're experts at, 25 big blinds or less.
Yeah.
And just being so well versed at that specific segment, and realizing that I can reg the tournament late, beat a bunch of the field immediately because they've already busted when they were 100 big blinds deep, and navigate these situations with great confidence and knowing that I'm getting it in good most of the time.
Here we go. This looks to me like our first all-in confrontation, because Queen Jack shoves the button, and that was an immediate rebang. Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
Rafael has ace queen offsuit behind. Now this gets interesting.
Decision time for Guedes. Do you just accept that you maybe have a ladder here, or I think ace queen is far too strong?
I think ace queen is too strong here, guys. So the initial shove was only for 6 big blinds, which is an important note, right? That really splits up how we have to think about it.
Didn't actually shove, by the way. He did not actually shove.
Oh, sorry. The effective all in.
Raised to 6. It was the effective all in.
It's a total stack of 8. Yeah, correct.
But this is a reason why you do that not all in, right? Is that if the ace queen does overshove,
Yeah.
conceivably you can get away from Queen Jack.
I think Strag might be absolutely
Yeah.
bang on the money, because
might
if the
be one
ace
of the
queen
rare
goes in
spots.
here covering small blind, from Gabriel's perspective, his hand is going to be, as we can see, in really, really big trouble. But if he folds and keeps 2 big blinds, he's potentially locking up page up from 6th to 5th, which is worth 12,000 US.
For a $700 buy-in, that's well worth it. Oh, the
Wow, ace queen lays it down.
Wow.
And he's going to be sick when he sees the 2 hands.
I don't think it's absolutely outrageous. It's quite tight, but I think even something like ace 10 performing quite poorly. You want to be quite pair dense, I think, when we call off in these spots. As we can see, the Queen Jack is calling off the remaining 2 big blinds and at risk.
Certainly ace king is a snap, right? Ace king is a snap.
I think
reshove.
ace king makes too much money. I think ace queen does probably make too much money. No help so far for the Queen Jack. But yeah, it's not... Obviously, when we look at this in a regular situation, you're just going to snap in the ace queen, but it's not as egregious as it might feel.
Yeah, it's kind of in the same vein, Spraggy, as, you know, like if we're willing to effectively go on with Queen Jack and consider folding to a shove behind, you know, it's kind of like let's allow the encounter to live here. Let's let these guys, you know, do some damage to each other and potentially find the jump. And as we see, ace queen does indeed find the ladder here. So that is our first elimination, guys. That is Gabriel Hefner. 269,800 reais, approximately 20,000 US dollars.
Actually, isn't that one of the spots that got bumped up a bit?
Yeah, actually, I think you might be right.
Because six actually should be 44,000.
Excuse me. Yep, I'm reading from the wrong hymn
Wrong
sheet
hymn
here.
sheet.
$44,500. Excuse me.
Very nice payday indeed. And obviously, the old adage is there's only one happy player in a poker tournament. No matter where you finish, you're always wishing for a little bit more. But 6th place out of 3,900. Sorry, 3,093. Not too shabby.
E aí tira pouquinho e pouquinho de cima. O que quieran, justo, beleza. Argentino, não tem problema.
Interesting proposition from Messenger DH in the chat, Nick.
Yeah.
Have an idea for a poker stream, a heads-up match, which is broadcast the next day with both players in the booth, so they can explain what they did and react on the muck cards of the other, etc., like Lex versus Spraggy.
Yeah. You know, I've actually proposed a similar concept when I visited the Isle of Man 3 years ago at the start of my most recent contract.
I remember
as
this.
ambassador.
Yeah.
And I actually love the idea of that. It's really just down to, you know, getting some of our top ambassadors all in the same room at the same time and getting a schedule going, and, you know.
I don't know if it heads up would be as cool, because you're going to see a lot of, you know, like, I think you'll know a lot of the hands anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, like, there's going to be stuff to talk about, but like,
Yeah.
You know, a 4-handed or 6-handed cash game or head, you know, or match where,
Yeah.
you know, all the players are in the booth kind of, you know, critiquing each other. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I also
happened. Sorry, Strike. Carry on.
I was just gonna say I also really enjoyed when Finton was doing his heads-up kind of Q&A games.
Yeah, it was like a
Those were quite
podcast kind of thing, wasn't it, as well? It was question and answer and a little bit of poker. It was good.
Yeah, that was a very cool idea from Finland. I hope he brings that back at some point. Obviously, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah. Run It Once, the training site used to do something like that, where they would have basically 6 of their coaches playing a cash game, and then it would be edited so that everybody is giving their thoughts when the action is on them, and then it would be edited together so that you could basically watch how the table played out, and then each player would give their thoughts on the hand, thoughts on the other player, thoughts how they would play that spot, and it was very interesting. My worry with it, I love it as an idea because I'm like a real poker enthusiast, as I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this particular stream are. Whenever you do sort of educational content, I guess, or more sort of in-depth strategy, it definitely tends to have a smaller audience than, like, a load of people would watch the heads up,
Right.
and then they wouldn't tune in the next day for the analysis.
Yeah.
Right.
100%,
So it's kind of like a little bit of not wasted energy, but a lot of work for a much smaller audience reward.
Yeah, the cost benefit is interesting,
Yeah.
and like you said, Spraggy, there's people that would absolutely adore that and love every part of it, but in reality, you know, the majority of people just want to see a collision on a final table for $1 million, you know, at an EPT or something. The one thing I would say as well is we have created, you know, the sort of quote unquote streamer showdown, which I think is honestly, potentially some of the best content that we can make. Is just, again, it's a tricky balancing act to get everybody in the same room at the same time. I mean, convincing Parker to do anything on a Tuesday or a Wednesday is hard at the best of times.
Oh, goodness me, yeah.
No, I'm joking.
I mean, that's a real wasted energy. Team never working.
A team never works.
Have to wait till he's staying with Spraggy again. So like Spraggy
exactly. And then
turns the bed upside down.
And then the internet crashes anyway because there's too much bandwidth. Got a really good question for you here, Strag, from Croaks. We actually missed this one earlier. He said, I'm curious as to how big of an announcement this is for poker, and he was making reference to the poker being recognized as a mind sport. So as an industry professional, you've been with Stars for 20 years now. You know, do you think this has any significance for the industry, like on the whole?
I do. And actually, Brazil is a great case study. For those who aren't aware, actually, Brazil does recognize poker as a sport, and as such, it doesn't fall under kind of the gambling legislation that exists in Brazil. And so it kind of poker has a carve out because it's recognized that it is competitive, and it's not the same. And so I think that's one of the big benefits, is that it does help us create the argument or the position that poker should not be treated the same when it comes to regulation. As you're aware, we have challenges when it comes to regulation that poker is often lumped in with casino. And that in terms of buy-in limits and you know, betting and wager limits and deposit limits and so on. And it's not the same by any stretch of the imagination. And oftentimes they don't include the legislation that needs to be there around, you know, things like game integrity or the making sure that it's written into legislation that sites can't run bots, for example. Which, if you look at Ontario, they did a fantastic job of their legislation in being very poker specific around it. But a lot of other licenses, they don't do that work, and it's because, again, you mentioned at the very top of the show, Nick, right? Poker was considered, oh, you're playing poker, you're gambling, you've got a gambling problem. Where, you know, we've had that fight as poker players to say, hang on a minute, no, I study, I work hard, I'm profitable, I keep records. Like, let me demonstrate to you why it's not the same as pulling a slot machine lever or playing a hand of blackjack. And so I think it's huge in that regard. I think it helps every piece of legislation or certification or validation makes so much difference for the future of poker, because poker, I mean, I've said it before, I think poker is a beautiful game, and I think it's an amazing game, and you know, I talk about it internally about how you can apply poker to your life, and I just think it's just something that anything that helps us spread poker far and wide is only a good thing.
Yeah. I'm with you, mate, 100%. Could you speak more on the governing body that decided this as well? So this was like the official sort of Mind Sports.
It's called the Mind Sport Association, I believe, and kind of, as my understanding is, they're responsible for kind of saying what sports are part of their remit, right? So, and you know, you'd obviously have, you know, kind of probably the most obvious one would be chess, right? But you know, I think there's a number of other sports like bridge and Go and mahjong that are all kind of encompassed in those. And we can certainly look at people. You know, you would say somebody who plays chess, somebody who plays bridge. These are games that you would recognize as that. Excuse me. Needs a certain level of skill, right? It's not completely luck based. And that one of the requirements is that skill is a preponderance of the element that's needed. Excuse me.
400 mil e o quarto ficou 400 mais 50.
Sorry.
1.320.000.
Are you okay, Strag?
You alright, Strag?
A preta é a que você quer. Preta sim, vermelha não. É igualzinho o outro, preto e fechado. Tem que ser
His voice has gone. He said, I could hear some drinking of water.
Okay.
He will return.
All good.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had no idea this was the case in Brazil. I had no idea this was that it was recognized as a sport and didn't fall under the same legislation. Obviously, that's massive. I wish, of course, that was the same place everywhere, and that we were a little bit more recognized for what is sort of a strategic pursuit, isn't it?
Yeah.
More so than anything else. That's the most important element of the game, is the strategy or the strategic nature of it.
So, guys, I think we are on a bit of a pause here. You can see the chip counts up there. Based on what I understand, I think play is continuing for some time here. But there is also a chance that we've reached a point where they're going on dinner break. I just want to confirm really quick.
Do we have to go on a dinner break, Nick? We have to. How long are they going to be?
We're not going to force you to have a dinner break through the power of the internet and
Hollywood magic about to take place.
My excellent production skills. If we are indeed on dinner break, we will actually skip. But I think play continues here. There it is. Yep. Okay, we're off again. We are down to 5 guys. Whenever we do these sort of quote-unquote replays, guys, because actually I say replay, it actually only finished in the early hours of this morning. I do have notes about where I'm supposed to cut in, cut out of our feed. However, we try our best not to spoil, so we still don't know the outcome of this event or anything like that. But play does continue. I think we probably have approximately another hour of play or so. And then when they go to dinner break, I'm going to use some wizardry, and I'm going to skip the dinner break so we get straight back to the action during a 5-minute break. Today's total run time approximately 3 hours, I believe.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right, buddy. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, it was I've been sick for the last week actually, and as you do, obviously your throat's going to be a little bit drier than normal. So.
You can only tolerate talking to me for so long, Strag. I get it.
You know what,
You just
Spraggy,
don't need to make an excuse. Just take a break next time.
I listen to your stream at night so I can go to sleep to your dulcet tones.
A lot of people say that. I had 2 or 3 people come up to me recently and be like, I fall asleep to your stream every night. I say, it does have that effect on people, eh? That's the power of the quality of the content. Such compelling viewing. People are just... Tylenol, whatever. What is it you guys have? Nidol? What's the one? Nidol? You're American, Nick.
No, yeah. What is it called? It's called Nidol. Is that right?
Whatever sleep aids. Short them in the markets. People have found my streams. And Rick Vinicius has found King 8 of Hearts, and is jamming. It looks like versus the raise from the hijack. Is reshoving all in from the big blind. We're going to see cards on the backs. Whether we're seeing that as a call or a fold, it looks like
Ficus was the original raiser. The big blind shoved all in. Pretty bold shove there. King 7 suited. 16 bigs. And
that's what it's called, NyQuil.
NyQuil. That's the one.
That's the famous one. Also, can we talk about the name Rick Vinicius? That is, if that's not a stage name, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it's got some villain vibes to it, to me. Maybe like lead singer of a band.
Yeah.
Or some sort of Marvel villain.
What's the guy's name? Is it Rick Vicious? Sid Vicious?
Sid Vicious. What's the guy's name?
Rick Vicious. My God, that's his Sid Vicious' brother.
Yeah, it's his brother.
But again here with the quite villainous, shall we say, King X suited reshove, we see Ace 10 in the bin again. So far today we've seen Ace 10 raise fold, Ace 10 raise fold, Ace Queen fold in the big blind to raise an all in as we get another dealer announcement, another great dealer joining the FT.
Sir John Bonington.
Sir John, knighted in Brazil, of course.
Sir John Bonington.
You used to be a poker dealer.
I was.
So you got to appreciate the fact that the dealers are getting a bit of credit.
I was saying to Griff, honestly, I think this is something that we should bring in. I mean, we have a handful of very well known feature table dealers. And they get a lot of airtime, but not necessarily any spotlight. I think we should introduce the dealers as they come in on EPTs. I suggest we introduce that. I'm going to go talk to James Hardigan.
All right, yeah, let's get the production team involved. We saw that Brazil. Remember that the dealer we saw in Macau, Nick, with the amazing nails.
Yeah. That's right. That was a lot of fun. Spraggy, if you had walk-on music, what would your walk-on music be? Like, you know, if they did like an announcement, if Spraggy's coming to the final table.
What's that circus theme? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
No, I think
because the best thing to do, only because the best thing to do to be is underestimated, right? You give the illusion of the clown, the court jester. That's really my whole shtick.
Oh yeah.
Come onto the F2 and they think, oh, here's some joker turning up, and then bang.
I thought it would be Oasis or something. I thought that was on brand for you as well.
Although someone just said straight away, Spraggy's walk-on would be Benny Hill theme tune. So it seems I'm not taken as seriously as I would like to be sometimes.
So I've got a fun bit of music trivia for you. I just heard the other day. You know the Muppet song that they used to play at the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
Na 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 na. Right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was originally done for an Italian porn film.
What?
Goodness me. And then eventually, we won't ask how you discovered this fact, Strike. And then eventually it was repurposed for the, do you remember BN Biscuits in the UK?
BN.
Other biscuits are available. And King 8 Deuce Rainbow is a board where Jose Leicester, has raised in the cutoff. We do see a big blind defense. And this time, we see a big blind connection with the top pair facing 2.5 million, which at this point with the blinds up to 601k is what, just over 2 blinds.
What do you think of the C bet, by the way, here, Spraggy?
I think it's pretty good. We saw pre-flop defend of 9-6. You might assume that most players are defending enough garbage that's just going to miss King 8 Deuce Rainbow. Obviously a very dry, disconnected board. So I don't mind a C bet. Actually, from the King Jack, we might see a raise. I mean, they've only got 9.5 big blinds back on the turn. I suppose the hand doesn't need too much in the way of protection and also doesn't really need to raise in order to get the chips in the middle. So call definitely a viable option. Interesting to see now if Jose wants to start applying pressure to an 8. I think it would be reasonable to expect Clodomir to have something like 8-9 suited, 10-8 suited. Obviously, Jose picks up the wheel draw with ace-5 and can apply a lot of pressure to the middling parts of the big blind's range. As we can see, we're privy to the fact that big blind is not in the middle of his range. He's towards the top of it with top pair. I do really like this barrel, though. I think 4 million is going to get a fold from an 8. I think it's going to get a fold from some better ace-high floats if they exist. So I don't mind the bluff. Clodomir decides enough is enough, moves all in, and Jose has to lay it down. So actually a very consequential pot here, picking up 9.5 big blinds with the King Jack defend. But I don't think really this is out of line from Jose. I think the raise is good, the bet is good, the double barrel is good, but just runs into it a little bit in this instance.
And as you mentioned, that's a pretty big swing as Clodomir does, pretty much come close to doubling their stack, and a pretty huge hit for Leicester there.
And actually, like this jam on the turn, when we think about, what we've just discussed, if an 8 is folding the turn, then it's very unlikely. Like, why would we ever call the turn, right? Why would we ever decide that call is better than raise? And that's if we think that our opponent is going to triple barrel bluff into us, right? But in this scenario, once you call the 4 blinds on the turn, you are very, very King X heavy. Right? It's not a range. If you're folding an 8 on the turn, it's not a range where your opponent's going to apply that third streak. Now, this board is so dry that there might be some merit to it anyway, right? Because you don't have anything to really protect against. But even denying 3 outs to the ace is not the end of the world for an extra couple big blinds, especially on a final table environment. So no real benefit to calling rather than just putting the rest of the chips in there. And a lot of chips it was, like you say, Strack. Like, this is actually a big swing. It may feel just like, 2 blinds on the flop, 4 blinds on the turn, but that is a big pickup.
Yeah, remember the blinds have gone up 600K, 1.2 million are the blinds. So I think even Morandini, who is probably one of our, if not near the chip lead, guys, still like second in chips. They're still pretty short, right? 22 bigs for Clodomir, I think 30 bigs for our chip leader.
Yep. It's quite funny that obviously we don't have the benefit of speaking Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, but he's still stacking chips, and player in the big blind gave him a little tap on the shoulder, like, you just fold, you're busy stacking the chips, you can't play a hand right now, and he just straight into the mug. Poker is a universal language, eh?
The first time I played poker in a non-English language was at the Aviation Club in Paris, and this would have been in the late 90s, and where you still, like, well, the Aviation Club was still there, and you had to wear a suit and tie to be able to go in. You had to, like, register 24 hours in advance, all that cool stuff.
Wow. And
yeah, literally nobody spoke any English at the table. Everybody speaking in French, and I had zero problems playing. I quickly learned the French for all in.
Tapis.
But and that was pretty much all I needed.
Oh, we might see some tapis here. Rick Vinicius with the ace in the cutoff. So 18 million chips, 1.2 million big blind. That's 15 bigs. And again, spoke earlier similarly with his king queen suited. You know, which hands do we want to take it down with? Which hands do we want to induce action with? Of course, we are in induced territory with the ace and the ace. Is going to bump it up. I imagine for a min raise, 2.4 million. Clodomir.
Anything other than a min raise?
I don't think so. Not as a raise first in. He 2.8x versus the limp, but obviously that's more standard. You know, facing the blind v blind limp. Yeah, min raise, especially at these shallow depths, you don't really need to go anything bigger, right? All of your good hands can just min raise and you know, quite comfortably create pots that are big enough to get all the chips in on later streets. We are going to see a flop here against Clodomir's king queen. Clodomir with the benefit of position. Ooh, bad news for people called Clodomir, at least. Queen high flop, dangerous. I think Rick here with a little check on his suits, because having a heart, quite important, especially Strag when ranges are really narrow here.
Yeah.
You know, your opponent being able to have the nut flush draw, quite important, because the button flat is going to be condensed around suited aces, broadways, and pairs. So Rick not having the ace of hearts might just lead him more likely into a betting line, just because he might be a little bit more interested in getting some of the chips in now, rather than allowing another heart to roll off. You know, his opponent's more likely to have a hand that can continue with the ace of hearts, for example.
I think that's a great observation. You know, this, like, what hands flat on the button here, you know, bang on with you loving the fact you don't have the heart, so that your opponent can have the heart. Gives you a little bit more leeway to bet with impunity, thinking that you know the draws are gonna pay you off.
Yeah, I love these heart rate monitors as well. Real nice little addition to production there. I know Lex has this on his stream as well, and it gets pretty hectic in some of the big pots. Very cool.
Is that a raise, or is that just a call? It's hard to tell with these chips.
So 2 million is the C bet, and more chips in the middle, obviously, and it looks like it is a raise to 4 million.
Min raise.
A min raise to 4 million, which I actually think raising here, playing a 2-bet on the flop is quite reasonable. Our hand is very strong. And obviously, the chips in the middle, we've spoken about how valuable they are. If your opponent has a hand, even like ace-10 of spades, that C-bets here, like being able to deny as much equity as possible on FTs is actually quite valuable. Obviously, the bit of concern comes here where we raise and we do see a 3-bet all in. And again, I think this is, you know, Rick just has a hand that is very happy to commit 14 blinds, but you might see some trapping from Rick if he has ace of hearts, but just needs a little bit more protection.
So, by the way, one thing I want to call out here is you see the logo on Rick's shirt, 4-bet. I believe that's a fairly large poker school in Brazil, if I'm not wrong.
So he knows what he's up to, you think?
Yeah.
It feels like that. The way he's playing, the way he's like holding himself at the table as well, feels like he's been here before, right? Or plays a lot of live. This is the thing, right? I like the raise, but this is just really painful now. Because the hands that you get it in against, you're going to be so crushed a lot or up against nut flush draws.
I mean, you
Don't
want to
even have the king of hearts either, right?
That's the only hand you're beating right now, right? That has to be the only hand you're beating right now is a flush draw.
Yep, you really, best case scenario is you're up against like ace jack of hearts and you still have to fade 12 outs. Really painful spot for Clodomir, whose heart rate has actually gone down. However, seems very chill.
But if you noticed Rick's heart rate, boom, was like in the 80s. That was impressive. Like,
I think also, Spraggy, as to your point as well, unblocking the hearts here really sucks. You know, like not having a heart in your hand means your opponent will have, you know, the ace king of hearts or, you know, ace queen of hearts or whatever.
Well, also just gives you less equity to suck out, right?
Hearts.
It was really snappy as well, right? The shove all in, that was like very quick. Like, do draws do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
if it's enough
what
flush,
are we, 14 blinds? Yeah, 14 blinds if you have ace jack of hearts. I don't think you have that much of a decision. Like you kind of just find yourself in a spot where you have to run it. It would be a very, very impressive laydown here, by the way, with king queen. Let's not lose sight of that. The fact that this is only 13 blinds, and obviously it's 13 very valuable blinds, but once you flop top pair and make a raise, to then be able to have the discipline to be able to walk away from it would be quite, I would say, an above the rim fold.
Yeah. Oh, foldy.
Has he done it?
He has folded.
Oh, I mean, that's some really, really genuinely strong hold'em. Like, really, really good laydown. I think a lot of players, like, they're going to get married to this, and rightfully so, because you are going to be able to get it in good sometimes. But to be able to raise fold this for like 13, 14 blinds on the FT and be right is seriously impressive stuff from Clodomir.
I agree, guys. Let's take a look at our chip counts now that we've seen that last exchange. So 12 big blinds at the bottom for Jose, 14 million chips. Vicas is still around the 36 million mark. But, you know, still a case of a very shallow average. I mean, these are, what are we looking at? I mean, less than a 20 big blind average?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, right around 20, I think, actually.
Right around, right in the middle. Yeah, about 20. So really something's got to budge. But, Spraggy, that's a perfect example, that last hand, of what we've been seeing a lot this week is just people very capable of, like, making those big laydowns when it really matters. And that was very impressive, you know, because like you said, how often do you just look at that hand and you go, if he's got it, whatever. I'm just going to run it, you know. It's only a few
Yeah, I think so. And I don't even think that's, you know, that's not a completely invalid thought process, right? It's not, it's absolutely fine. But it's just a case of, you know, maybe these guys, you know, we're 6 days into this event, played together a lot, and, you know, the pay jumps are a lot, and being able to get away from it certainly shows a certain level of discipline to be able to just go with your read or trust your judgment or trust your instinct. Where a lot of players, like you say, will be like, well, I'm here now, let's run it, right?
Yeah, and it's super player dependent as well, right? If you're on a final table with somebody that you know is very inexperienced, you might go, they're overplaying Queen 10, they're overplaying Queen Jack, you know, they're overplaying a weak flush draw without any
They're showing
cards.
each other so many hands here. They all know how each other.
They're basically playing cards up coverage, so they have the benefit of that.
New poker variant. They're playing Showtime, Strag. They're playing Showtime.
Yeah, I love, you know how much I love Showtime. I think it was a great variant. It's just a shame. It didn't really take off. I just thought it was great fun.
Which was that Showtime?
Yeah, where you could see the card when somebody folded. You're basically folding face up every hand.
Yep.
And I think people actually disliked the fact that it exposed their play. Because when you would see somebody like under the gun fold like pocket eights, and you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
You know, and I think people don't like the fact that they no longer can kind of hide in anonymity what their playing style actually is. One of the things, by the way, we have our first bad poker lookalike for this final table. John Delano in the chat. Clodomir, serious Sean Connery vibe.
Bad look like.
Bad lookalike, John. Gotta say, we love the effort though.
Strag, why don't we bring him back swap hold'em? That's what the people really want.
It's a great game. It's just too slow. That's the thing, right? People just don't want. People don't want to play slow games.
It was honestly, it could be the new No Limit Hold'em, but
I think
you
it's a
know,
great. I think it's
you-
a great
you-
variant.
you
Which was
guys-
swap Hold'em?
You guys broke my heart.
At any point in the hand, you had one chance to swap a card.
Huh. Did we ever have that on the
Yes, we
client?
did. Yes, and it might have been my most winningest cash format of all time. It was absolutely stellar.
It's cash only. We never did it as a tournament.
Okay.
format.
I think at one point I clocked together all the hands that I had played playing swap, and I think I had something like a 40 big blind per 100 win rate, and it was happy days for me.
Man,
So
Rick
here it is.
Vinicius opening up a little bit now. Look, getting in there, defending this 10-4 of clubs in the big blind. Does have a few more chips to play with. Fancies his chances against the button steal from King Deuce. Might not fancy them so much anymore. And again, 10-4 of clubs here. Said earlier, Strag, about you know, your options in chippy V environments, or you know, when you're a little bit deeper. 10-4 of clubs with some good backdoors. And this is the problem with a slightly wider big blind defense here is now we face a C-bet where ordinarily we might float, we might raise, we might get out of line. It's so much more punishing to do so here with 5 left.
It's
That your
interesting.
10-4 clubs might just have to be, you know, binned.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about this when people ask me, like, you know, what are things to study, like, you know, what areas should I focus on? You know, I talk a lot about, like, you know, people tend to focus on, like, starting hand ranges, and those are quite easy, right? You know, you can give people kind of rules to follow. But then talking about, like, one of the things I think people misplay a lot is just big blind defending ranges. And
Yeah.
and because it does vary depending on stack size, depending on dynamics, and you know where the raise came from, and I do think it's just people are making some pretty big mistakes.
They are indeed. You're absolutely not wrong. I mean, the reason you can defend so wide in the big blind is because you're going to want to have like 20+% check raise versus c-bet in a lot of situations, and obviously a lot of people are playing a lot more passive than that. We do see Rick get kind of out of line with the 10-4 here. I mentioned that this is something that might happen ordinarily. He does go for it on the FT with just a checkman raise, and you know what? I kind of love it. We see the all-in from Jose, who's going to take it down, shows the king to the table and the crowd. But earlier, Strag, you asked me how do I feel about that c-bet. He c-bet ace-5 offsuit on king-8 deuce, right? So he c-bet here on the king-high dry board. He's going to have those ace highs.
Yep.
So this min raise from 10-4 suited is going to work a lot, and you're able to pick up the pre-flop raise and the c-bet. So
It's a favorite play of mine to call out of the blinds against a late position raiser and check raise, depending on flop texture, check raise flops.
yep.
And I love to do it, especially against highly aggressive pre-flop. I had Niall Farrell at my table once, and I think I did it to him like five orbits in a row.
Yep.
Where he would raise in late position. I would call out of the blinds and just check raise him no matter what. And,
Yep.
and it's just such a profitable play.
I think
It is, and like you say, this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they just defend and then play too passively, right? Defend the big blind and then just either check call and then check fold turn, or just check fold too many flops. You have to be really, really stubborn and sticky and
right.
aggressive.
I think it bears saying as well that the effectiveness of these kinds of check raises as well increases the deeper we get in a tournament as well, right? On this final table, with the stacks being the way they are, as shallow as we are, with the pay jumps looking the way they do, those check raises get really potent, and all of a sudden, you know, players laying down a lot of strong hands that probably should need to continue at some frequency. Just runs into a top pair here, though.
Yeah, this was made a little bit more boring just by the fact that Jose had it on the button.
Yeah.
And didn't have something more middling, or
Exactly.
you know, like wanted to float back in position or something.
It's worth noting Lesta has chipped up, and you know, after having been near the bottom most of our coverage, you know, as we saw, the last break was down to 12 big blinds, now around 17 big blinds. So you know, still playability, considering how close the stacks are.
Yeah, and a really interesting flop here, because Jose now does flop a hand that's much more in that middling category. And Claudemir picks up the open-ender with a diamond as well. It's going to go check. The turn a 9. Might be a card that favors the big blind. Maybe Claudemir starts to bluff. Doesn't. Check again. And at this point, if I'm Claudemir, I've seen 2 very quick check behinds. It's definitely a player who's like ready to be at showdown, right? And it's sort of telegraphing the exact sort of hand that he has. Claudemir chooses not to pull the trigger on the bluff, though. Check. King Jack will take it. But again, this is a hand that plays out very, very quickly, and both players kind of playing very honestly, right?
Yeah.
The jack checks back, it wants to check back. The queen high wants to see more cards, it does.
I like how you phrase that. Both players are playing honestly. I like to talk about the fact that a hand of poker is like telling a story, right? When you're playing a hand of poker, you're controlling the narrative when you're betting, and you're trying to say what that story is. And sometimes your story is a true one. Sometimes your story is a bit of a fable. And that was a story that both players were on the straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of comments about the way the table is made up, and I know Tom commented on it earlier. I commented on it on a previous broadcast. Interesting rail, like the actual rail around the table here, very broad, looks very padded, very textured, kind of cool. I think especially on these TV tables, which if you've never been at one, and I know Spraggy, obviously you have as well, they tend to have a very high rail, right? And not the kind of rail in terms of the height from the table to where your arms normally rest on, which can make it difficult to look at your cards.
Sure.
And I like the fact that it's padded so that you're getting a little bit more comfort at least.
There's a couple feature tables and final tables that I played on, in particular in Cyprus. I don't know if our tables are quite different, but like you say, it's quite like a deep well,
Yeah.
You're sort of reaching down towards the tables. There's one in Cyprus that I played at, it was just like a craps table. It felt so deep, and it is really hard to it wasn't quite as deep as the craps table, but it is hard to sort of angle your cards and peel effectively.
Something that we noted the other day as well, Spraggy, I was saying about how I'm slightly colorblind, and sometimes the chips that we use in tournaments can be, not differentiated enough for my eyesight. And then also somebody pointed out that the tables that we use for EPTs with that colored rail, they're RGB, right? We can change them.
Yeah, they have the LEDs.
So
it makes some of the chip denominations blend in.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And it's great because it means that people can navigate the card rooms really well, and they know where they're going, and it's easy to find what tables you're looking for. But you look down, and the actual RGBs are, as you say, kind of blending colors together.
Here we see again another hand that finishes incredibly quickly.
Yeah, more honest hold'em.
Very interesting.
King Queen happy to show down, check back, just playing kind of exactly what they have again, right?
Yeah,
the King Highs both happy to show down, check.
Both players thinking, I probably got this on the river.
Yeah.
I will say this does feel like a slightly different pace from what we've seen in the previous days of coverage on BSOP. Obviously, this is a much smaller buy-in, but we're not. It might just be a symptom of the fact that we have big pay jumps and we're on a massive final table, from a 3,000 plus field. But as you say, everyone's playing it pretty honest. We're not seeing anyone get too out of line.
Big fan of that card protector we see there. I'm a big fan of card protectors in general. I have a pretty huge collection of different card protectors. As you know, Nick, I like to bring a different one every day I play poker.
Sure.
And it's something that, again, I teach people about protecting your hand. We don't see a lot of card protectors, like people bringing card protectors. Maybe, I don't know, one or two people at a given table might have them. And I was actually sat next to Chris Moneymaker in a tournament once, and he criticized me for using a card protector. His point was that by using a card protector, I was giving off a tell. He's claiming I'm protecting my cards only when I'm going to play a hand.
Right.
Not realizing that I make a point of doing the exact same thing whether I'm going to play or not.
Of course. And I mean, look, some of the best players in the world do it just fine. Doesn't seem to be an issue. I mean, Espen Jorstad always has that Super Mario card protector as well. Doesn't seem to stop him from winning $1 billion every year.
Exactly.
Good question for you here, Strike. I was thinking about this the other day. So it's no secret that Nick Walsh has very poor mental math skills. And also having played in an environment online where we have chips to big blinds pretty much for most of my career, when I go live, I do sometimes sort of lose track of what's happening. What if, and I want your professional take on this, Drag, what if my card protector was one of those clickers that the doormen use, to count one in, one out, and I could just keep
big blind that goes in the middle,
and I could just keep big blinds, click, 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 click. Does that work? Is there some rule against having some sort of a mechanical aid?
Well, there probably are some TDA rules around certain kinds of mechanical devices, I don't think that would necessarily be prohibited.
Yeah.
It might cause you to get punched in the face.
Are we banned abacuses at the table yet, or what? Are you going to turn up with some prehistoric counting tools, or what are like stones in your hand, like a cricket umpire? You pass them between your hands, to count the over. Like lines in the pot, Nick. You could just learn some mathematics. How about that?
No! Don't be ridiculous.
There
That's
are
not
a lot
going to
of
happen.
shortcut tricks you can use. But it's funny you say that because I used to go to this thing every year in Las Vegas called Barge, which is a bunch of internet geeks getting together and playing poker for a week or two. And one year, one of the guys brought a big box full of clickers, those cricket clickers, kind of what you were talking about, because we used to play binions, and that was what the dealers used to use to signal the cocktail makers.
Oh wow! Okay.
So imagine an entire poker room of people. We tipped really, really well, so the cocktail servers didn't mind at all. But boy, the floor, because we would use them in the pits as well. We'd use them anywhere in the casino. Man, the floor staff did not like us at all.
That's funny, Strike. That was like, so I used to be a dealer, as many of you know, and the universal signal in the casino industry when you want attention from other staff is you kiss up, right? You go, like that, right? And so I got so used to doing this when I was still a dealer, and it was appropriate for a dealer to do so, that when I then just became a player who went there regularly, I'd kiss up.
I do it.
And they absolutely hate it because they're like, no, that's our language. You're not a dealer anymore. You can't use that.
I do it all the time. I still do it. If I want to get a drink, I want to get it now. I'm not waiting.
I have to say the service in Las Vegas during our last stint was atrocious.
Yeah, I think definitely have fewer people on the floor. Fewer people on the floor than they used to have.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Now, this hand here is probably the first one we spoke about, honest no limit hold'em. This is the first time we've really seen some dishonest stuff. A raise from Fernando, defend by Rafael, c-bet flop, an ace-jack floats the queen 9-3, picks up a jack on the turn, which gave Fernando the flush draw, but chose not to bluff. And unfortunately, I feel like this 5 is going to kill any hopes we had of some sort of bigger bluff, because it's a bit of showdown value. It's check, check. And Rafael, fierce pump in the air, as well he might, because it's, again, a sizable pot to have won, even though it's just a raise and a c-bet. But interesting that the ace-jack here, obviously, I guess 2 of the bigger stacks at that point. But ace-jack's certainly a hand where you could see a 3-bet pre-flop and a bit of fight back. It's actually, here's a concept that a lot of people sort of have, not the wrong way around, I don't want to say, but jamming pre-flop, a lot of people see as like the risky action, right? Chip leader raises, it's considered risky to shove all your chips in, your tournament life in against the raise with ace-jack. But actually, I would argue that one of the bigger risks is doing what we saw here, which was to defend and then force yourself to float queen 9-3 out of position. Right? This is actually a situation that will lead to more harmful impacts on your stack than just jamming and denying the king 5. Right? So oftentimes our mindset is risk averse. We don't want to jam against the chip leader in case we get called. But actually, in just calling and then floating the flop, we kind of put ourselves in a lot trickier to navigate situations than just the very simple, like, profitable pre-flop jam. But the ace-jack does get away with it this time, manages to chip up. But, if we don't turn a jack or our opponent doesn't slow down, often we'd have been better off just whipping it in pre-flop.
And I think that goes to, like, having a plan and thinking ahead. And oftentimes people aren't doing that. They're just kind of thinking, oh, in this moment, what do I want to defend because my hand's got some playability, not necessarily thinking about what am I going to do on later streets.
Yep.
And what's the future cost of this hand? What's the future plan for this hand?
Yeah, and not thinking about the consequences of each action, right? And playing sort of more in the emotional moment of, I don't want to shove and get called, so I'll just call, right? And then on the flop, I don't want to fold because I still have ace high. He could be bluffing, right? But like you say, Strike, having a plan for the hand is also important. And Rick Vinicius has another plan for this hand.
Look at this! Like, how long has it been since we've seen these kind of mass? Get your hand behind the stack, shove the whole thing forward on a final table. That's the one kind of argument for, I guess, having these huge chip stacks at the final table is
it makes for better TV, but it does make for clumsier play. Yes, but Rick actually reshoved the king 8 suited before, right? Versus a steal.
King 7, yeah.
King 7 suited, yeah, excuse me, and shoving the king 5 offsuit now. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the meta in these 3-bets is the high-low, And obviously the logic here is that the king is blocking the strongest hands, like ace king and kings that are going to call you off, and then the 5 is unblocking the middle portions of the range. So you'd unblock something like what we see here, something with a 10 in it, something like jack 10 suited or queen jack. So we don't really want to bluff with a queen, a jack, a 10, or a 9. So you want to block the top and unblock the middle. That's why you see a lot of these reshoves like the king 5, which is another very well executed reshove that gets a better hand to fold. Previously, we shoved the king 7, folded out the ace 10. Now we shove the king 5, fold out the king 10. And as we can see, it's paying dividends for Rick right now.
Yep, nice work, guys. We continue with 5 players remaining from a field of 3,093. These guys have battled for 6 days now. This is day 6, in fact. And they
That was one where
looking to take down some big cash up top.
That was one where I would have loved to seen the heart rate monitor in those scenarios when you're when you're really put to the test. And you mentioned earlier about liking that Spraggy. I don't know if you know this, but like way back at the very beginning of kind of the online poker boom, when we were seeing a lot of televised poker, the U.S. Poker Open experimented with exactly that. They had everybody hooked up, everybody in the tournament. When you went to TV table, were hooked up to a heart rate monitor, and it was constantly on the screen the whole time.
Yeah.
It was compelling. It was fascinating.
I think I'm so unfit that people just think I'm constantly incredibly nervous about playing cards, but that's my resting heart rate's probably somewhere close to 100 at the moment, sitting in this chair all day.
Exactly, mate.
I think we talked about that on a previous stream. Remember, Nick, about the neck pulse tell?
Yeah.
And what a such a true tell that is when you see that. And I think that's very related to the kind of heart rate check, right? That's where that's going to show up physically.
I have to say my heart rate during big hands is probably exceptionally high. But I have the advantage that I probably get more excited about situations where I have a big hand than when I'm actually bluffing. So
I think that's really common, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that this is another very reasonable c-bet from Jose, by the way, with the ace-4, has the ace of hearts, harder for his opponent to continue, very dry board, but Vladimir, once again, similar to the king-jack, is able to continue very freely just by virtue of having flop-top pair. This one might be interesting. A little bit of a shame for us that it's a 4, because Jose picks up a little bit more showdown value, beats some ace-high floats, but the heart could yet play its part. Does not.
Man, the speed that they are checking here.
Yeah, check. But yeah, just come back to pointing. I think it's really common, by the way. When people have high heart rates or the neck pulse, it's when they have big hands, because they are ready to play a big pot, right? They know that there's a good chance their tournament life's going to be on the line. When you see anxious players or nervous players pre-flop, it's usually not because they're bluffing. Because if they 3-bet light, they know they're just 3-bet folding. They're not getting too excited or nervous. But when they have aces or kings or queens, they think, shit, this could be it. All the money might be going in.
Exactly.
That's when you see these heightened heart rates, I think. I know it's true for me. I know it's definitely true for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I do find myself out of practice today when I'm playing online. I mean, Spraggy, you'll relate to this as well. Being streamers, it's our job to be quite emotive about what's happening because we're sharing it with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when you go to a live environment, and the idea is to be the opposite, to be more of a brick wall, as it were. Then obviously it's an adjustment, especially if we're playing online as well, even off stream. We don't feel the need to sort of hide what we're doing or hide how we're feeling, and all of a sudden, we're out of practice, and it just feels a little bit tricky to get back into the swing of it.
And used to be talk about playing online about how many mice you went through or how many keyboards you went through because people would smash them against walls.
Yeah, one of the guys that coached me to play heads up when I moved to Thailand was a notorious smasher. Like he used to have an iPad playing like movies on the side when he was grinding. He was one of the Strag, you'll remember this. He was one of these guys he was one of the original guys that made Supernova Elite like multiple times. And very successful guy, like actually a very good player. And every once in a while, it's just he was having a bad day, and iPad would just go through the window, and that was his thing. And I guess he could afford to do it, but I was like, How are you so good and you still can't just chill?
If you remember that show, 2 Months, 2 Million,
I remember it well.
They had the
Yeah.
tilt room, huh?
the tilt room where you could like take a baseball bat to watermelons and stuff like that. I like that idea a lot.
To this day, Strag, it is my aspiration to recreate something along the lines of 2 Months, 2 Million for the new generation. That was what I'll go back and rewatch it now to this day. I think it was stupid and it was silly and it was very hokey and it was sort of dramatized, but it just something about it was just so fun, and it just I remember that being quite a big sort of thing for me watching, going, oh, this sounds like fun. I think I want to play poker for a living.
Yeah, I think content like that is so important. We talked about like the thing about being a mind sport helping to grow poker. I think shows like that too. That what I liked about that show is it kind of showed the grinder mentality. It
Yeah.
showed the kind of need to have a plan and to have interaction. I think when I was grinding, and this was a long time ago, but when I was grinding, I was doing it alone. I was sitting in an apartment, 15 hours a day, multi-tabling sit and goes. It was not healthy. It was not good for me, from a physical and mental health point of view. And I
Yeah.
think, having it's something I was definitely going to be seeking out. I had already been talking to some people about it. It was about kind of getting a grindhouse or something like that together.
Right.
This is obviously pre-streaming, this kind of stuff being formalized. And then I got the job with PokerStars, so I was able to quit grinding. But.
Yeah, I think it captured like poker culture really well.
Yeah.
Between the different crews and hanging out and what the grind entails and just everything. I remember me and my friends, similar to you, Strike, having watched 2 Months, 2 Million. When I was at university, we would do similar things, where we'd have like everyone come round and just be like, grinding and playing poker, and we had a little whiteboard of everybody's scores through the weekend and trying to make whatever 5K or whatever at the time. It's very inspiring show.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a full circle moment as well. I met Lucky Chewy for the first time in Bahamas, the last PSPC, and he wasn't one of the main guys in that show, but he was a feature of it at one point. There was an episode where they got Lucky Chewy around, and I was like, huh. I used to watch that show, and here he is in the flesh, and he hasn't changed much either. Bless him.
Yeah, cool guy, very cool guy.
Sweet guy, really really lovely guy, and also currently working on his own project as well, Octopi Poker, I think it's called.
Yeah, interesting one. We used to do that, by the way, at PokerStars in the very early days. On Sundays, we'd go around to somebody's flat. We'd all be grinding. We weren't allowed to play on PokerStars, obviously, so we were playing probably mostly on full tilt in those days. And we'd be playing something like the Sunday Brawl, which I think was their big Sunday tournament at the time.
Yep.
And whoever was chip leading got to have their table put up on the TV for everybody else to sweat.
Yeah, it's class.
So whoever had the chip lead amongst all the people that were playing, it was just good fun, right? It was fun to have company to sweat while you're getting your grind on.
I love that.
And just make it a because poker is meant to be a shared social experience, right? It is one of the great things about poker. To me, it is that at the table we're all equal. We all, it doesn't matter what you do for a living. It doesn't matter how old you are or what you look like. We're all there to play poker. We all share that common interest. And how many great conversations have you had around a poker table, right? I love it for that.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it in terms of having conversations that you wouldn't ordinarily have, or meeting people that you wouldn't ordinarily meet. Yeah, I remember we used to do a similar thing with mini F-tops, actually. I remember that was probably one of the first ones.
Oh, yeah.
I remember playing as like, it was a big event that we'd all got around to play. And then similarly back in the day, like Micro Millions main event, tournaments like that, taking shots at $22 main events. Yeah, those were the days.
So much fun, man. I like, as I said, Strag, I do legitimately think in 2025 I'm going to try and create a grindhouse. I know I've actually asked you on a couple occasions about locations that I was scoping out to potentially do that as well. But as you say, that war room, that's what they called it, right? In 2 Months, 2 Million, the war room. I think you need that war room environment. You need a good setup. You need everyone to have their own individual setups, and then one giant flat screen, to share in the glory and bask in the
Brazil,
moments.
man. Brazil, I'm telling you.
Brazil was top of my list. I currently have a folder on my Airbnb account of 75 locations that I've scoped out for a potential stream house. Just got to pull the trigger and get it booked because most Airbnbs aren't. You got to, if you want an entire month on an Airbnb, you kind of got to book it in advance. Strangely enough.
Indeed, and here we go again. I'm seeing Rick Vinicius with that offsuit King X, King 5-0. Loves these hands in the playback situation. We've got a raise of Jack 10 suited, and I feel like he didn't fold.
Nope.
We are potentially, I think, well, clearly we're off to a flop, and it is King High. Might be another one where life gets a little bit easier for the big blind defender, who so far, this time it's Rick's turn, but so far our big blind defender's been flopping very well indeed. Fernando. Jack 10 of diamonds, not a hand worth too much to check back, not going to be winning at showdown or being able to get showdown very often, so we like this c-bet. It's definitely going to fold out large portions of Rick's defending range.
And unfortunately, does run into top pair yet again.
Yeah. Just over 2 big blinds for the c-bet. Interesting how Rick's going to proceed with the 5 kicker. Obviously, there are some very bad situations. Running into, the obvious ace king, king queen, king jack, which are all going to be in Fernando's opening range. And a board where we don't have to protect against too much. This hand gets very different if we have, let's say, jack 5 on a jack high board. We're much more incentivized to deny when there are more overcards that can come. But on a king high board, less to protect against. We do just see the call.
Question in the chat from Ramon. First-time chatter, new to poker, but how do the broadcast producers know what the cards are the players have? Are there tiny cameras at the table that see their cards? Used to be that way, actually. We used to have tiny cameers.
Used to have tiny cameras or like a glass bottom on the late night
poker. But it was Henry Ornstein, I believe, who came up with the lipstick camera that was what original WPT broadcast used. And then WSOP used it as well prior to what we use now, which is RFID, as it says in the chat.
That's right. There are little microchips in the cards, and when they place them just so, we get the information about what the cards are that we can broadcast this way, guys. But also don't forget that if we were to handle these things live, for example, in EPTs, there's a 30-minute delay to protect the integrity of the game. And having seen it firsthand, the individuals who are producing this, who do see in real time, are kept basically under armed guard. So it's all very well managed by Stars, and game integrity, of course, absolutely key to managing these events.
Well, interesting to see here of Rick, who made the check call with King 5. In this situation before, it went check. Players playing very quickly. You see Rick now, and I think it does go check on this occasion, but Rick playing a little slower, a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more considered, I would say. I think Strag, you scared it early with the patch on, the 4-bet patch on, and just the way he's carrying himself at this table is definitely the player who seems the most comfortable, the most willing to take spots or to think about spots a little bit more deeply. Is going to pick up another pot here, but certainly the player who's impressed me the most at this final table so far. As looks like another break, still 5 remaining in the field.
Yep, that's right, guys. So this was the dinner break, which is about 75 minutes, but through the power of Twitch and my excellent production skills, we are going to have the opportunity just to skip through this. I'm going to give you guys some break content for about 5 minutes or so while I line up our next broadcast, and then we rejoin the action 5-handed, and we will play down to winner. So we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes' time.
Queen 7 of hearts for Vice.
I don't think there's anything else to be done. We just get it in. This is actually kind of a monster at this stack depth. Oh, wow. Okay, just finds the limp instead.
King Deuce offsuit for Soloftus.
Yeah, got to shove this.
All in, and Vice asked for a count.
I think he might actually limp call this, James. Once you've opted for the limp, sometimes combos like this are still priced in, but let's see how Vice feels.
4,100,000. Makes the call, and here we go. Soloftus gets it in with the best hand. Queen 7 is live, and if Vice gets there, we have a champion.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how it played pre-James. If there was a shove from the Queen 7, King Deuce is definitely calling.
And the Germans are justifiably calling for a 7.
And look at that, 60-40, slight favorite to Soloftas.
Is the 7 always coming? He'd probably take a queen as well. The Vice squad and Anton Wigg watching on. Seven!
It's always coming 7, James.
Vice takes the lead. And now Soloftas is drawing to 5 cards. He needs 3 cards. He needs a king. Turn card is a 5. And now Soloftas with additional outs, an ace or a king will see him double up. Start of day chip leader Oliver Vice can win with a blank on the river. Vice, baby! Oliver Vice is the champion of the EPT Cyprus main event.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Apologies for that glitch just then. We are back in São Paulo, and action resumes at the Brazilian Series of Poker 2024 BSOP main event, day 6, final day, playing to a winner. Today's buy-in was approximately $665 or 4,000 reais, and they're playing for a first-place prize of about 240,000 USDs. It's Nick Walsh on comms, joined by Chris Tregalis.
Hello, hello, hello.
And Senor Spraggles.
Maybe not back yet. That was a quick 5 minutes, Nick.
It was actually more like 2 minutes 40. I apologize for that, guys. Break content usually is about 5 minutes or so, but what a decisive hand that was. That was from Cyprus this year, of course.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, you know, we're still ironing out exactly how we are handling some of these international broadcast guys. So we're using new tech.
Certainly would love to hear feedback, too, about how you are receiving this. How do you like it? We are experimenting a bit more with kind of time shifting some of the content, doing some of this. As you know, we did the Macau not too long ago. Obviously, been just doing some different content as well with the Winter Women's Festival.
Manila, Manila.
Sorry, I keep saying Macau, don't I? And we were going to road trip there, and yeah, looking forward when Spraggy's back, because one of the things that we're seeing here that Spraggy was talking about, kind of the local metagame here in Brazil, and we talked about that as well in Manila, right?
That's right.
There was clearly a local metagame there as well, and I think it's fascinating. I'm a big fan of metagames in general when it comes to strategic games, which poker is a strategic game, and I like to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, which has different formats and different metagames, and that's where that kind of concept first made itself known to me, was the idea that it's not about, there's like never an absolute best thing. It's more about like what beats what and what's popular, and adjusting what you play based on what's popular. And poker's very much that way, right? What your local metagame is. If everybody's playing passive, then play very active, play very aggressively, right? If everybody's very aggressive, then maybe you change to being a lot tighter. I think it's just being aware of what a metagame is and how to adjust to it. Really, really important. And this is fascinating to me. Like we've been live an hour and a half now.
Yep.
Almost 2 hours. Lost one player.
Yeah.
When we started with some, like nobody was big stacks, and still nobody's big stacks. So
I mean, I warned you, Strag. This is what we've been seeing all week. Just the ninja short stack skills are very, very admirable, and it just, you know, as much as I absolutely love doing coverage of, you know, our events for PokerStars, it is a very modern game now. It's a very well-studied game, and people are ICM masters. And ultimately, when we get to a stage of the tournament like this, we do see people just playing very conservative poker, or maybe not conservative, but what's the word? You know, just sort of very measured. And ultimately, that's where we've arrived. You know, back in the day, final tables were a little bit more Wild West.
Oh, 100. I mean, I loved those EPT retro streams
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it really showed
My
how
thoughts
different
exactly. Yeah.
the meta was. One thing we should call out here, Nick, during the break, there was a deal agreed between the 5 players to chop 5 ways, everybody getting 106,000 US,
Yeah.
and setting aside 59,000 for the winner. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this changes the way this table plays out. You're now playing for one place.
It seems that they've basically just agreed that they want to flatten it out just a smidge.
I mean, getting 6 figures each is amazing.
A smidge. Everybody just gets 100 grand, and we're playing. So we're just only playing for the 59K for the win, right? So now it's just ICM out the window.
Welcome back, Spraggy. How you doing?
Did you guys introduce me and I wasn't here?
Yes.
I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
I answered for you, Spraggy.
To be fair, it
Thank you.
was a 2.5 minute, 5 minute break.
Yeah. I didn't think it had been 5 minutes, but I tried to make some crumpets, but I put the crumpets in a toaster and then
make some crumpets.
I know it's not
Is that
that
the most
hard.
English
That
thing
might be the
I've
most
ever heard
English
you
thing
say.
I've ever heard Spraggy say in the history of Spraggy.
As it turned out, I'd unplugged the toaster last night to use the air fryer, and then
Spot of tea as well.
I did have a spot of tea and some crumpets, but the crumpets were not delivered because the toaster was unplugged. It turns out you have to have it plugged into the wall socket.
Oh, that helps.
Who unplugged the toaster?
Me.
That was you.
As long ago as last night, but my memory is failing. Apparently.
My wife and I have that thing that goes on because we have we have an air fryer, toaster, and coffee maker next to it. You know, so something is always unplugged amongst those 3.
That's it. We have the microwave, the air fryer, and the toaster.
Oh,
the
you're
air
not so microwaving, are you, Spraggy? Oh, honestly.
Yeah, it's barbaric, isn't it?
Barbaric, honestly.
We're living like a caveman over here.
Everything needs to be air fried.
Air fried. I got an air fryer. I got a toaster. I got an Instapot. I don't even use the the stove anymore. It's not important. Not useful.
You need to have a crock pot or a rice cooker. Though.
I also have a crock pot and I have a rice cooker as well. Yeah, I should have called those out too. All the devices.
You are Ninja Food Incorporated's dream, aren't you, Nick?
I am famous for my air fryer
similar
prowess.
companies.
Yep. Next year I'm planning on releasing a cookbook, Spraggy, and the working title is What to Make in the 5-Minute Break.
That's huge. I honestly, you've just found your, well, presumably this has been announced before, but you found another customer because 5-minute cooking skills, or use of the 5-minute break is, like, no, I think poker players are the best in the world at maximizing 5 minutes of productivity.
Yeah.
Even in 2003, I was, and by the way, that was in the years before sync break, and I was playing Singo, so there were no breaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it wasn't even like what to make in the 5 minutes. It's like what to make in the dash from my desk to the kitchen that I could shove in the microwave, push the button, and dash back to the desk before I timed out.
Spraggy, have you ever seen the pictures of Strag with his long hair?
Oh, I haven't, but just the mere mention of it has me excited. Is it as glorious as I imagined?
Honestly, handsome guy, looking good, looking fresh. And I'm into it, but I had to mention it because I'm just imagining Strag in front of a PC, 8 tables open,
hair flying in the wind,
multi-tabling, the spinning goes. There's a fan somewhere blowing his hair in the wind,
like Ike outside at the that famous PCA hand, hair flowing in the wind. Wow!
Oh,
what a visual.
That was honestly one of my favorite poker moments.
So the strategy changes infinitely now, right? Before, when we're seeing all these like ICM decisions and maneuvering and small raise folds and rejams and things like that, now you're just incentivized to get chips. Because if you're just joining us or if you missed it, 1 to 5 now playing at $106,000 US. So everybody guaranteed the 106K, and then it's just winner gets an extra 59,000. So you go from every hand carrying with it a very high risk premium to no risk premium at all, right? You just have to try and win the tournament. Your goal now is just to accumulate chips. My WhatsApp has popped. It says Strag. Wow, look at that.
Oh, did you send it?
Look at that.
Isn't that wild?
It's incredible. It's one of the most incredible things I've seen. That's a beauty. Look at that. Thank you, Strag.
Just anything I could do for you.
I will never. This image stays with me.
That might be a caption competition candidate at some point, Nick.
Yeah, well, I was literally just saving the your mystery bounty picture to send to Spraggy as well.
Yeah, we got some good ones lined up. Speaking of the Chat Pro Poker Show, if you're not familiar with it, this is a little thing that Nick and I do every Thursday, except when we don't, which is most of them. And we've got a cool one coming up.
Yep.
So maybe after this hand we can talk a little bit about it, because we've got an interesting one here with the Vinicus with the flush draw and the gut shot, and Lesta with a diamond and a gut shot.
Yeah, lots of equity for Rick in the big blind, and Jose, who's like to see bet. Certainly a hand we could consider checking back as well, because think about consequences of our actions when we bet. If Rick decides to raise here, we're in kind of a unenviable situation of maybe we have to fold a gut shot, an overcard, and a backdoor diamond. So at 12 big blinds, although it feels natural maybe to continuation bet, getting raised kind of sucks, for want of a more sophisticated parlance. But
this
we
is
do
a very
see,
raisable hand from Rick as well, right?
yeah, very raisable hand. That's what we see. And in fact, we do see a call. Now, this is not a hand that would have happened before that deal was made, I wouldn't imagine. But the king high calling off with the gut shot, with the over, with the backdoor diamonds for just 12 bigs, finds itself up against an incredible amount of outs, but actually king high at the moment, the best hand.
But behind. The best hand.
But behind, the best hand in terms of if we're showing down right now, absolutely, but is at an equity disadvantage.
All right, guys, so sweaty moment for both players here. Going to the turn, let's see what the dealer has for us.
King of diamonds.
It is the 3 of hearts.
Could this be too many outs for the queen 8?
It might be a too many out scenario.
Still 37% for the queen 8.
That's insane. Oh, it's just not right, is it? It's just not right. The
King high
KT
for the win.
holds for the win.
And Vinicus now, as we kind of identified as one of the stronger players at the table, left with just crumbs.
Crumbs?
Three bigs, something like that?
As in crumpets? Crumbs?
So let's talk about a crumpet, right? So I'm having this discussion because one of the things when I go back to the States is I was there for the NAPT, and one of the things when I go back to the States is I tend to have a lot of the foods that I've been missing. And one of the things that you can get in the U.S. that you cannot get anywhere in the U.K. is an English muffin.
Yeah, that's true, actually. In fact, whenever Miles and I go to a diner in the US and they offer you your bread options, it's always like sourdough, toast, whatever, and it's always English muffin as an option. But you very rarely see them here. It's kind of, I guess a crumpet is kind of similar to an English muffin.
It's the closest thing.
Closest thing, but the crumpet has like aerated.
A
So
crumpet
it's like
is
holes
flat
to it.
surface, right? And it's dense. It's slightly denser than an English muffin. The key to an English muffin is that it's got those. It's a bit more aerated, right? And so it's got more. They made a big deal about it. They did the television commercials about like it had like, all the pockets for the butter to get into.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of those things that when I first moved to the Isle of Man and I'm like, oh, I'm in the UK, I can get English muffin anytime I want. I can't find it anywhere.
No.
I have found certain brands of like Marks and Spencer does a crumpet that's quite close to an American style English muffin. I just love the fact that it's called an English muffin, and you can't find it anywhere.
But it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, Nick and I had a very very American style breakfast at the Pepper Mill across the street from the Resorts World, where I had I had chicken fried steak and hash browns and sausage, and Nick had you had the prime rib, right?
I got the steak and eggs. Yeah.
Steak and eggs, and for 2 people with coffee and juice, no alcohol, nothing else, tax and tip, $120.
Love the Pepper Mill, by the way. Great 24-hour spot, or at least it used to be 24 hours. I think it's back to 24 hours now. It wasn't for a few years post-COVID, but great deco. But I do remember whenever we've been there, it is quite a lot for what you're getting, especially because there is a Denny's
Right
not
next door.
too far down.
Literally on the next block over.
Yeah.
But
Then it is listen, is there a noticeable drop-off in quality? Yes. But that price point.
you can't beat the price, mate. You can't beat it. I went into Denny's at about 7 a.m. because I couldn't sleep on the first day I arrived in Vegas. Went in there, waited a couple minutes, got up to the bar. Food was great, whatever. Price is great. As I left around 9 a.m., there was a queue around the block to go into Denny's, and servers were going outside and saying to people, you can't come in. We've got too many people in this line. Go home. That goes to show you the state that Vegas has found itself in.
Barred from Denny's.
Everyone knows that Denny's is the best bargain in Vegas, and that is a sad state of affairs.
Somehow there are queues for Chick-fil-A. Explain that one to me, Nick, because I don't get it.
I don't
Chick-fil-A,
get it, dude. It's not that good. It's fine.
In-N-Out, yes, 100%. I'm waiting in a car for an hour to get an In-N-Out burger. But Chick-fil-A, no. Vinicus now with the 3.3 bigs, getting in there. I love the suited one gapper. Loads and loads of playability. And gets it through.
Doubles up. Big double up.
No, that's not right. That's not right. How many bigs was it, Strag?
3.3.
Oh, you cannot be folding that hand,
It is
man.
any 2.
No, ATC, buddy. ATC.
Yeah, I guess it is, especially now we've flattened the pair. We're all for the win. Sure.
Yeah, but you just need to get chips, right? It's like
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe we're still 5-handed and we've been back from break for what, like 15 minutes
I
now?
know.
Something like
What
that?
did I say? What did I say?
Yeah, I thought this would take the pressure off. It would take the brakes off and
My-
just keep going.
My week returning after the Women's Winter Festival has been watching Brazilians play really good short stack poker. And it's just like this. Nobody busts.
Okay, Guedes.
Action hand.
There you go. Let's see some action with the 10s.
Here we go.
Vladimir with a king and a queen. What are we, 11 blinds deep? Fernando with an ace and a 7. Great hand, the ace-7 suited. Do we have a 3-way all in?
No, there's an
do.
all in from the A7. Nope, the king-queen suited folded.
Oh, king-queen is out on our backs. So Fernando still, or very close. I guess these guys are very close in chips, 21 million. Fernando all in for 20 million and just about covered then.
It's a domination situation, guys, but is there an ace on the desk? That's what we want to know.
Fernando with the backpack on. A classic of the genre, increasing your equity by at least 3 or 4 or 5%.
Yeah,
Oh,
easily.
huge stand-up equity.
There's
we go.
always an ace on the desk.
It's all about standing up.
And this by far the biggest pot that we've seen. Rafael fuming right now. He's up to 120. Justifiably so. King on the turn is no diamond coverage, gonna need 2 outs. But this then, the biggest pot, right? It's 45 million, which is now 28 big blinds. And it is going the way of the ace-7. And that's big because although, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all get in the same pair, we are still playing for $59,000 up top, which, let's not lose sight of the fact that that's a lot of money when you've paid $600 or potentially less to get into this tournament.
That's right, and backpack equity is real.
Yeah, it's much stronger than putting on your coat, by the way, because that's a lot of extra work. And it's not like you can sit right back down without taking it off again. So in terms of having a future plan, once you put on that backpack, you're committed. And
it's also it's more embarrassing to have to take it back off and sort of retake your seat.
Yeah, the poker gods appreciate the commit to the bit. It's like, you can't mess with the poker gods. So we got B Zephyr in the chat, Spraggy, and as you probably are aware, they are a big fan of a certain clip. certain event that happened.
B Zephyr exclamation mark saloon.
Don't tell me you don't know what we're talking about, Spraggy.
Come on.
There was this time when you were
One of the
clicking
best
around.
clips I've ever seen in my life. It's actually
Never got reimbursed for that, by the way.
Reimbursed for what? Nobody. I wasn't controlling your mouse.
You could hear me in the clip go, Strag, you owe me money. You owe me money.
I don't owe you money.
You made me
Plus,
call limit 9.5. You led me astray. Somehow
I paid you
this is your
25
fault.
pounds in leads. I made a really bad call on the river.
He led you a strag, yeah.
Nice.
How many views does that clip have now? So, what is that up to now?
It says 80K,
Wow.
but I don't know if we trust.
Do we trust the
I don't know if we trust the Twitter
muskrat?
metrics. I think if someone's ever been in the same room where this may have been loaded once, it's going to count it as a view. But
Yeah, probably.
it's a lot of people enjoyed that. A lot of engagement on that tweet. It's good stuff. It was well done, Strag.
So GG's to our 5th place finisher. We are down to the final 4 now, gang.
It's going to be a pretty hefty heads-up battle here, right? They're going to be playing for, what, near 60K for heads-up.
Não faz sentido nenhum, né, pai? Você tá maluco.
It's really interesting decision to do that kind of very flat. And then 5-way chops, like not even any variance between because the stacks were not all equal, right? There was somebody who had.
Yeah. On the shorter side.
Yeah, because I actually clipped the chip count as we came back from break, and it was 30 bigs, 23 bigs, 21 bigs, 17 bigs, 12 bigs. So Fernando Facus, who had the 30 bigs, I don't get the even split there.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big give up.
It does seem as though all players sort of feeling the gravity of, making it through a 3K field and just sort of sharing in the rewards.
I think you see this quite a lot. You don't see this deal a lot. What you see is an attitude of wanting the pressure environment to be over.
Yeah.
And actually, this leads up to a lot of people kind of finding a spot. Actually interesting, like the King-Queen one where we saw the raise fold. A lot of people take this spot because it's kind of like an excusable way to get your chips in.
Right.
And a lot of people, like, when this high pressure environment is on, they kind of want it to be over. Which I know sounds very strange to say when you're playing for a lot of money, but you see it happen all the time. So it's an understandable, like, take the pressure off and take a chop, but it is indeed a very, very generous chop because, it's a very big chip disparity to have an even chop. But I get it.
Vinicus
Also,
here,
100K is a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think there's a lot of that, right? It's like, you know what? I can negotiate here, but I want 100K.
Yeah, and it's very much like when you see these awful EV deals where people say, do you want $100,000 now or a 50-50 flip at $1 million? And the majority of people will take 100K because they just want to, offer someone $100,000 now. They think I've made out great. It doesn't matter. They don't care that their stack is worth 120.
Yeah, and as it just kind of put into the chat, that there's a little bit of confusion because they're showing the payouts different. They're showing what the original payouts were.
Right.
There was a 5-wheel deal made. Everybody received $106,000. That is more than third place money, by the way, substantially more than third place money. So 89,000 was third place originally. 86,000 when they redid the payouts. So yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to going. Yeah, maybe giving up 10K in equity,
right?
But I'm also locking up a big chunk.
Yeah, and then we still play for some as well, which is great.
Because remember, if you had gone out in fifth,
yeah,
you're only getting 56,000.
Right. Spraggy, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the whole sort of deal thing. Like, I know that sort of theoretically, if we feel like we have an edge, and if we feel like we're the best player at the table, we probably should always be going for the win, no deals, because tournament poker is so hard, right? You need the big wins to balance out, the investments that you've made in other fields where you haven't, succeeded. But Do you feel like that shifts in situations where it's a much larger field, like a field of 3K? Is there more leniency about doing a deal where the reward is going to be huge in relation to your buy-in, but also obviously a spot that you're unlikely to probably do in future, anytime soon?
I think a lot of it depends on what your ABI is, what your average buy-in is, and like how often are you going to see yourself in that situation, right? I think it's a lot easier to do those things online where you're playing huge amounts of volume. You're going to realize the long run, possibly.
Yeah.
Whereas live, you're never going to realize the long run, right? We've talked about this before. It's just like you can't play enough live tournaments to ever be like you got somebody like Bryn Kenny, right? The guy is lifetime, huge amount of money, won. But he could also just be the biggest luck box in the world, right? Like seriously, because he could just be like a run pure, and because he's only ever played 100 of those tournaments, that's not statistically significant.
Right.
So I think it's very similar to me in that situation. It's like, and going back to Spraggy's thing, it's about the utility value. What is it worth to you personally? Not like what should we be doing?
Yeah.
In a theoretical, worlds are lovely and amazing, but they're not real. And we need to be practical around like if you're in, there's a great story of Chris Moneymaker, right? That he didn't have 100% of himself in the World Series, and in fact, when he was down to the final three, I think it was final three or final four, and when his satellite, he was trying to lose. He did not want to win the seat because we don't let you chop seats on PokerStars, and he wanted the cash that you would have gotten if you bubbled the seats. The cash was like over $7,000. He had some credit card bills he needed to pay off. So when he won the seat, he actually sold half of his action to his uncle so that he could pay off those credit card bills.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like, it's just a very real story. It's in his book. Like, I'm not telling tales out of school here. Like, this is a very well-known story. But that's the point. It's like, that was the value to him, was like the immediate value of the money to him was like, it was way more important to him he get out of debt than play a tournament.
And I think that's it. I would answer similarly, right? I mean, I would never judge anyone for making a deal that they felt was right for them. And in particular, when you're in for $600, it doesn't really matter, like the EV of the spot, like you say, Strag, because you're not going to get back here. It's not like if you're a full-time pro, maybe, or whatever, and you're in a financial situation where you're able to just be like, my stack is worth 130K. I'm not leaving for less than 130K, even if that means I'm going to eventually crash out in 6th place for 50K.
Right.
When you're playing for a life-changing amount of money potentially, or people are just happy to lock up. They don't really care about the long run, as it were. They're just looking at it as pure dollar amount. You just take the pure dollar amount. Like an extra $30,000 might be worth way more than, oh well, my stack is worth 40,000, right? So whatever. I think that's the very best thing that PokerStars does in terms of its live event offering, is allow deal making, transparent deal making, because it's important to allow people that, I guess, escape mechanism.
Yeah.
In a sense, or like being able to realize that you don't really want to force people who've bought in or satellited in for $1,000 or satellite in for $10, that force them to play heads up for 200 grand. Like, it's just not a reasonable expectation.
Here we see Ace-7 folding to the all-in from Ace-3.
That was, I believe, a Pokemon card that was being flashed there. I want to say it was like a Magneton. I don't know if there's any advance on that in the chat. I saw it briefly. It also looked like, from my perspective, that it had been ripped twice and sort of sellotaped back together. So maybe, I don't know.
Somebody said Lucario. Is that a Pokemon? Lucario?
Are you a Pokemon fan, Strag?
Well, I had a child, a young child at the time that Pokemon first came out. So for a time, I played Pokemon with my son.
Right, there you go. And absorbed a little bit by association.
And wish we still had the first edition Charizard that he had in his collection at that time.
Oh, wow.
That would be worth a fair bit of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a Pokemon fan back in the day, but there's a new trading card game app out, and I got it, and they were just giving me the most nonsense Pokemon you've ever seen. They've run out of ideas. There's so many Pokemon you can make up now that they're all over the place with it. It's like Magnet Head, and it's just a head of a magnet.
Yeah.
It's
getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous.
It's lost its head.
My favorite Pokemon?
Psyduck.
Psyduck's a bang. Snorlax.
Jigglypuff.
Great Pokemon.
Jigglypuff.
Great Pokemon.
Snorlax is my spirit animal.
I can believe that. All in confrontation here, and drawing to 3 outs for the 8-3 of hearts.
A very short stacked. Rick all in for a couple blinds. King 7 is holding. 3 players remain.
And we're in spin and go territory, Nick.
Oh, okay, wait. Okay, this is me coming into my expertise. GG to Rick Vinicius. 4th place finish. I wanted to say 6 for some reason. 4th place finish. And we are down to 3, as Spraggy just said. That's right. And it's basically just a spin and go now. Speaking of spin and goes, guys, very excited to be involved with the Spin and Go Championships, which are coming up very soon in Prague.
So, Nick, how would you feel? Let me ask you a couple questions about this.
Yeah.
First of all, how excited are you?
Very, 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 very.
First ever live spin and go championship.
Yes, and I actually think the format is so clever. So just briefly, guys, basically we're going to be grouped in 3s. We're going to play first to 5 will progress, so it's kind of like a shootout, but it's a series of games to decide the shootout, which will be spin and goes,
Like
of course.
Very snooker-like, right?
Yeah.
Very snooker-like.
Yeah. And then also, I'm not sure how they're going to handle it because I'm not sure I've seen any actual paperwork about this or any notes, but there is going to be a randomized element where players will be given random prizes, similarly to what we see with the sort of spin mechanic in Spin and Goes. But I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be really cool. Sorry, Strike.
What do you think your chances are?
So the guys who are going out there who have qualified are going to be absolutely top tier spin and go players, no doubt about it. And I've said this to a lot of my community as well. We were running a quote unquote promotion. It was less of a promotion, more of a qualifier, really, in my mind, because the amount of play required to sort of get in that top 50 or indeed to come first in any one of those heats was extreme. And therefore, we're going to be dealing with some serious players. So what are my chances? I think I got a pretty good shot, but I'm just happy to be a part of it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see how it works. But my point was, Strag, that actually I think that this format might be something that players would be interested in buying into if we were to do it in the future and not just qualifying for.
Oh, you mean to do it as future live stops?
Yes, but not necessarily because it's the spin and go format. Just because I think that actually, if we have the facility to do it, I think people would enjoy a very differentiated way of playing poker. So sort of a shootout, sort of the spin and go thing, fast paced, randomized prizes.
We got another all-in confrontation.
Oh, well spotted.
Next hand. Barely able to get back to the table, and no wonder on that flop.
3 cards in play. King 10 and a Pokemon card.
And that seems like the King 10 has got an unfair advantage here. Can we make out what the Pokemon card is? I still can't make it out.
No, I can't. I think I might be right about the rips, though. Certainly not a PSA 10. Whatever's going on.
No,
I
it's
can't make it out.
seen somewhere.
We need some notes on what that card is.
Lucario EX from Turtle Monkey in the chat. Never heard of it.
It is Lucario. How about that? Never heard of it. Let me see. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, they've run out of ideas with that one, haven't they? Stay a bit.
Who's that Pokemon? It's
Pokemon
Pikachu.
number 448. Give it up.
KJ looking good. 3 of clubs on the turn.
Come on,
Turns
Lucario.
the Pokemon around to invoke its evolved form. Does not happen. Failed to catch them all.
Indeed, and that leaves us heads up. Playing heads up for 59,000 US dollars.
Let's go.
No, I think we're still three-handed. I think, yeah, Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pokemon guy
remains.
is the chip leader. Fernando Facus.
He failed to
AKA
catch them all.
Lucario.
Lucario's still in with a fighting chance.
fun fact, by the way. Since by the way, I don't think Nintendo owns Pokemon APK. I believe it's a different company. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, but fun fact about Nintendo, they started life as a playing card manufacturer.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
that's their first years of existence were manufacturing just normal playing cards.
What would you estimate your Magic the Gathering collection to be valued at now, Strag, these days?
Oh, Magic the Gathering. I sold all my Magic
You
the Gathering
sold
cards.
loads, didn't you?
I had a Black Lotus. I had a Mox Pro.
Oh.
I mean, I had Time
wow.
Twister. I got a lot of money for it. Don't worry. I mean, I did well, but it's probably 10x since I sold it.
Yeah.
So
not that well. Yeah. We get it. You sold your Bitcoin too early. We understand.
I did sell my Bitcoin too early as well, but that was more recent, and I only ever had 3, and that was good enough.
This was that's actually really funny. But obviously, Bitcoin is doing really well at the moment. I have a friend who wanted to sell at 5K, and he was terrified because at that point we started to bring in tax laws regarding Bitcoin. So he decided he was going to move to Gibraltar in order to efficiently sell his Bitcoin. and actually, the process has taken so long, to become
Whatever tax advantage.
to become a full Gibraltarian and to avoid all of the sort of capital gains tax involved, that they actually did him a favor. So he's finally in a position to go ahead and do it, and it's all-time high, nearly 100K.
That's hilarious.
What a
That's
life.
hilarious.
Yeah, thank you, GB,
Yeah.
Taxman. Appreciate you.
As it's colloquially known. So yeah, it is. Oh, sorry, Nintendo part owns it, along with Game Freak and Creatures, I guess, is the other company, according to Shredded Scott in the chat. So there's this. You know about the Pokemon Go thing as well, right? It turns out that whole thing was basically a way to get
it was data training.
Data training for like a mapping project or whatever.
Yeah. It was something to do with mining. What's the word? Machine learning, like map tracing, or something.
And whenever
like that.
they wanted to get a location mapped, they would put an especially rare Pokemon there. Like
Everybody
seriously,
would flock to it.
This is like a real thing.
Damn, that's so smart. We're always getting played, huh?
It's so smart. I mean, look, anytime something's free, there's a cost somewhere. And
I think I did it for like 3 months, and then I just went like, "What the hell am I doing?"
I never got the fascination. I just totally did not get it at all. And, I'm a nerd, so.
It was great when it first came out, though. When it first came out, people were actually like out and about and chatting and socializing, and parks were full. And
At work, we would go for walks at lunchtime. Teams of people would go walking at lunchtime to go find new spots. I mean, it was cool, right? But you felt like this is getting me to exercise more, so you actually were like proud of yourself for like doing a physical activity. I mean, especially if you're a poker player, right? Anything that's actually got you up on your feet is just insane. And yeah, it turns out all along we were the ones.
we were just cogs in a machine, weren't we?
That's
Yep.
right. All the Matrix.
I mean, you were. You two.
Yeah,
Or
Nick
indeed.
saw right through it.
I saw straight through it. I went, wait a minute, this looks like machine learning mapping.
Andor didn't like
exploitation.
catching matchups.
Just hate people.
Yeah,
No
I
excuse.
owned the bus stop across from the Queen's Pub for like a good 3 days.
Amazing.
I actually, the worst thing that happened to that game was when people started doing the location spoofing, and they would just create emulators and sit at home and spoof their location.
Oh,
And
honestly.
just start taking over. Your like village shop in my small town was owned by just like insanely strong accounts that held gyms everywhere. It's like, okay, there's always some people who ruin it, right?
Yeah.
Some people just don't. It's like you are people who just love to suck the joy out of life.
That is the problem with any game, and obviously as like, sort of people who work, and particularly work about like developing games and developing new games and new formats and new ideas. Obviously, it's kind of like an arms race sometimes between people who offer games and people who want to play and solve games. Is that some people will just solve them down and, like you say, suck the joy out of it. If you create any sort of loophole or any sort of exploit, gamers and people who enjoy that sort of thing are going to find it and exploit it very, very quickly, right?
Especially if there's some, it has to be just the tiniest bit of incentive to do so.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right, Spraggy. Developing a poker product is actually not that hard to do. Like getting figuring out how to deal cards and what order to put the seats in and so on. That part's easy. It's the edge cases and like how do you proof this against the people that we know are going to abuse it? Like a bunch of people joining a tournament at the same time. Make sure you don't seat them at the same table together. Stuff like that. And again, you're facing an army of people that are thinking about this 24/7, and you have to foresee what they're going to do. It's incredibly difficult to do.
This is actually a big thing where my sort of mindset when thinking about these things has changed and altered working with PokerStars the last 8 years or so, 7 years or so, I guess. People in the chat will suggest things all the time. Let's do this promotion or let's do that, and I say, my brain immediately goes to, well, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah, here's how it's going to be abused.
Here's what's going to happen if we do that. 99% of the people are going to do it this way, and then you find 1% of people who are going to do this, and then, it's just not viable.
You know what comes to mind, Spraggy, is this is why we can't have nice things,
Yeah, it really is that, right? It's like, well, it's a nice idea on paper, but it's going to take, 2 or 3 people to do this. I was talking recently about isn't it the Women's Festival? Remember, Spraggy?
Yeah, we were talking about Double or Nothings,
Double or Nothings. And it's like, great, it's a fun format. I enjoyed it. And then we just very quickly realized this is the perfect format to have, rife for collusion and people.
Well, the hard part is it's not that it's just rife for collusion. The hard part is it's such a different form of poker that the normal game integrity tools don't apply, right?
Yeah.
Because, like we talk about, when is it correct to fold aces? Well, in the satellite, you can fold aces pre, right? But in Double or Nothings, it can be correct to fold aces, right? Because your goal is not to win. Your goal is to survive.
It's effectively a satellite of sorts.
It is effectively a satellite.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
all
it
flat.
means that your plays are very, very different. But it also means that if you're a chip leader, you can chip dump, and those chips are worth literally nothing to you, but are worth infinite to your fellow colluder, which is why it's just a bad format and why we changed it to 50-50s. But there are lots of scenarios like that you have to be careful at. And that was one of why developing new formats is also very, very difficult, because you have to think about, again, how is that going to be abused? What are people going to do to take advantage of this? It's one of the reasons another reason why I like Showtime is that, you are giving out that information that would help players at the table realize, how people are playing, but also it's just that much more transparency. I'm just really disappointed it did not do better than it did.
Well, that's really interesting because, when you talk about playing, people play like 5-card, 6-card PLO online. A lot of the concern is about having players share cards and the value of those cards.
Yeah.
And how radically it changes the strategy, right? Like if you have a table mate who you're colluding with and someone says, I have the ace of diamonds, and there's 3 diamonds on the board, it changes the strategy massively, which is actually kind of an interesting mechanic, right? Because you create a variable where I can't play this hand in this way anymore because I see this card. But when it's under the table, it becomes a massively unfair disadvantage. But if you have a game like Showtime, like you say, it actually creates interesting strategic choices. If, there's a 3 been folded and it's 8-6-3, and your set combinations are lower and you get check raised and things like this. So I think, it is a bit of a shame that didn't really catch on as well as it might have.
It was so much fun to watch that game. I mean, I spent hours watching it in our client, seeing how people adjusted to that and how they adjusted to, because again, we talk poker is a game of incomplete information. It's what makes it great, right? If it was, chess is a game of perfect information, which kind of makes it relatively boring to watch, right? It's you've got analysts that they know exactly everything's perfect and the players everything's perfect, but giving people more information but still incomplete information, it added a level, to my mind, it added a level of complexity which maybe people don't want. We talked about, Nick and I have talked often about Power Up and why, terrible that it didn't take off, but it was, again, probably too complex. People don't necessarily want to have to learn a new variant when they've spent so much time studying No Limit Hold'em.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely think variants of No Limit Hold'em is probably the way to go in that sense. Like you say, because then people don't feel like they have a complete time sink. It's not completely wasted energy.
Yeah. Well, I thought Showtime would do well because it is a variant, and it to be fair, of all the different kind of new games that we came up with was Fusion and Deep Water and a few others. Of the new variants, 6+ Hold'em obviously did very, very well. The two that did the best were Showtime and Fusion. Showtime, because it is just essentially no limit hold. You didn't have to learn anything new. It just gave you more information. The one that I was surprised by was Fusion, though. I didn't think that would take off at all.
That was it became a PLO hand later on later
Yeah,
streets.
you start off with a hold'em hand.
Yeah.
And then on the flop you got a card, and on the turn you got another card, and now you're playing Omaha. Well, you're always playing Omaha, but you don't know all of your hand until the turn.
We do see the Jack 10 all in here. We might see the clash of the 9-6 of clubs. 25 million to call. All the money up top. Maybe time to take a bit more of a high variance approach. Looks like Fernando's asking for a count. These are the two of the shorter stacks. The winner would become chip leader, though. Should there be a call? See Fernando a lot more relaxed. Look at that, 73. Max out at 100. A lot of the pressure off.
Pokemon is not out.
See, now, is like you said earlier, Strag, about you using the card protector and it being a tell. You know? He's not wielding the Pokemon card. What does that tell us about the strength of his hand? It doesn't need protection from the Pokemon. Maybe it is just the draw all the time. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Is that a fold or a call? We can't tell here. No, it's a fold.
I believe it was a show and a fold before the player behind had made the decision, potentially, or had half made a decision.
Oh no, it is a call. It was a call.
Oh, it is a call. There we go. That makes more sense as to why the hand is being shown down. There's the all-in triangle. Wait a minute. Maybe it is a fold. He's counting chips. No, we're just showing information again. It was a fold.
Wow. Why did the deal? Okay, never mind. Love our deal.
We lined them up as if we were about to go for a run out, but it was just to make sure everybody knew that the 6-9 of clubs had been laid down.
There is one thing I wish they had here that I'm missing, and that is an actual people-populated rail. Can you imagine in Brazil what a rowdy rail that would be?
I have, I have seen a few for the some of the events, right? But it's a little bit further, like it's not in our view, right? It's like
I'm talking about the EPT style where you've got the like standing up
around
rail.
the table, yeah. I mean, I think that was the best rail that I've personally been in the room for was the Barcelona rail where Kowalski was on the FT 2 years back. Ah, that was unbelievable.
Flexinelli.
Yeah,
that's the Flexinelli year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the one where Kowalski made the call. I think he called ace high at the river as well.
It was ace high, yeah. One of my favorite hands. I love that guy too.
Legendary stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be like it's top 3 EPT broadcasts of all time.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was really, really fantastic stuff.
And I love even the penultimate day there. Great word, penultimate. The penultimate day there where the vibe amongst the table was insane. They were laughing, they were joking, drinking. Yeah.
That was really good. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, what a great final hand as well. The boat over quads that ultimately saw Flexinelli take it down.
Oh yeah. And it needed that, right? It needed that finale.
The absolutely iconic moment when he gets the call, sprints over to his mates and says, "I win," and fails to actually expose his hand.
Yeah.
Has to remember to come back and actually show the quads because he was so excited.
It reminded me a little bit actually of the Sebastian Mallet's win, where he goes to sit in the crowd. Remember
Oh
that?
yeah.
And then he runs back. By the way, had that guy ever paid him off in that spot? Like, if someone jams all in, heads up in an EPT, and then goes and sits with his mates in the crowd and starts sipping on his drink, it's like,
about being comfortable, right?
Really feels like he has a good hand.
So yeah, question in the chat from Zaphod, obviously Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan. Why the whole day delay for BSOP rather than the usual 30 minutes? Because they played insanely long days, and poor Nick, I think, what was the first stream you were up till 3 a.m.?
Yeah, 3 a.m. We did a 9.5-hour stream, and that was final 9. And then the Legends event was, we were coming back to 17 players and not final 9. And it was hour-long clocks with a 40 big blind average. That would have gone till 6 a.m., I think. So, executive decision.
Yeah. being a very agile environment, moving quickly, made the audible call to change it up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys, nobody loves it more, trust me, but this is also coming at the end of a very long November for Nick Walsh. I actually hadn't been back to my house since the 5th of November. We did
So
Vegas, Nottingham, Leeds, London, and then the day that I arrived back in Brighton, was straight on a stream at 5:30. That ended up being 9.5 hours with myself and Griffin, covering some of this excellent BSOP.
B's effort in the chat. So Nick is soft and couldn't cut it, is what I'm hearing.
Yep, fair.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
And defend from 8-5 here. And the ace-king checking back. Oh, small blind, big blind, sorry. I didn't realize that. Still. It seems that, you know, for the amount of money that's still on the line, it feels like the decisioning is still incredibly quick.
Yeah, and the table playing, you know, a little looser, but still playing for 100 blinds, 100 buy-ins,
Yeah.
roughly, right? 57,000 US. We're in for about 600 piece.
59, I think. Even, right? 59? 59,000.
59,000, yeah. So shorter stack on the button now. It looks like.
So apparently we got a bad lookalike from YouTube. Now, one of the rules of bad poker lookalikes is they're not supposed to be a bad lookalikes of other poker players.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the rules, people. It's too easy to do that. It's like when we do Spraggy, it's like, oh, Boris Johnson, right? That's easy. Everybody knows Spraggy looks like Boris Johnson.
Fair, reasonable.
So the one from YouTube was Fernando is Bill Perkins. Although Bill Perkins is potentially better known as a poker player, also a hedge fund manager, I believe, or does something to do with making lots and lots of money. That
Gas trader, I believe.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Commodities traders. And so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously much more known. Like, he wouldn't be famous as that. He would be famous as a poker player. So I can't allow it. Won't allow it.
Poker adjacent, disqualified.
Strike, did we ever have a conversation about his book Die With Zero?
You and I have not had that conversation.
Hey, did you ever get a chance to read Bill Perkins' book Die With Zero?
I have not. I've heard of it. I've not read it.
So,
I understand the concept.
How about you, Spraggy? Did you get a chance?
I've had a chance to read it. It's been out for many years, but I haven't read it.
So
No.
essentially the concept was there's no point earning a bunch of money and then you get to 60 and then you die and you got 100K in the bank or whatever, right? Because
you want to maximize your...
You've worked for that utility and then you don't get the utility of the money that you've worked for. Mm-hmm. So in a nutshell, the idea was that you actually go on a calculator, you go on several calculators and you estimate the day that you're going to die, and then you work out how to spend every single dime of that money that you're going to make over your lifetime, right down to the very last moment, your dying breath. Interesting concept. I'm not sure if it really applies to everybody, to be honest. I think it was an interesting idea, but really ultimately a lot of people not having the kind of money that they can even worry about at that stage in their life.
So this should see a collision, by the way, here. And
yeah, I think so.
Indeed we do. Big pot, by the way.
Big pot, yeah.
Big
top pair over top pair.
So pretty much whoever wins this in the driver's seat. So this is a huge dollar value hand.
Oh, Pokemon card out again. Backpack on. This guy is activating all of the bonus points.
No backdoor equities here, though. With the hearts, no hearts in play. Does need that 10. And in fact, that's going to kill one of the 10s as well, because spades alive for the queen jack. So Fernando in big trouble.
Right? Does bring in some chop outs. A 5 and a 4 now become chops as well.
Great shout from Strag. And no chop.
And I'm now going to allow the Bill Perkins because of Johnny Hunter on YouTube calling him Brazil Perkins.
Brazil Perkins?
That's class.
So Nick, have you been inspired by Die with Zero? Is that why you play poker?
I think it was
You've seen him
interesting.
play poker.
I think it was an interesting thought experiment. GG to Fernando, by the way, Ficus, third place finish. I think it was an interesting thought
Third place
experiment.
for $106,000 each player chopping 5-handed here, so we're just playing for the win.
That's right, and we are heads up, ladies and gents. I think it was an interesting thought experiment, and I take the point. I think that the book intends it to be a very literal, not thought experiment. And like in principle, I do tend to agree with it. I also think that actually a lot of people don't have the kind of money that Bill has, so it's also a little bit of a.
It's quite a luxurious perspective, right?
Yeah, it seems it's. I don't want to use the word privilege, but perhaps it applies more to people that actually have a lot of additional wealth.
Yeah. Also, I mean, just my immediate thoughts are, like, let's say I'm an old guy and I've got $100,000 left.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the philosophy of the book is that you should maximize. You should die with zero, maximize your spending so that you have the maximum good time or enjoyable time. But if you're a 70-year-old guy or whatever with 100K, but you'd rather just like go for a walk in the park, it's actually going to be a detriment to you to go and spend 100K on something, right? To go and burn money. Like a lot of my activities, hobbies, enjoyment in life comes from things that don't cost a lot of money. Going to the football or playing
100%
with card games with friends, or whatever it might be, or seeing family, or spending time with my buddies down the pub. So like imagine being down the pub, like, all right, I got 3 days left, but I gotta leave the pub now because I gotta go and burn 100K and get
I gotta go buy some jet skis immediately. No, and to be fair to Bill, it's been a while since I've read it, but conceptually it was also to do with the fact that the money has greater utility when you're younger. So, he's like, there's no point in you having a ton of money when you're old, because actually you don't even really want to spend the money at that point anyway. It doesn't have the same utility that it did when you wanted to go on ski holidays and,
or like holding for an age that you may never
exactly. So there was sort of scope for that adjustment. But I'm with you as well. I also think that it's coming from a place of in order to have fun, you have to spend money. And I'm with you where, like, actually the majority of the things that I enjoy doing actually don't cost much at all.
And the reality is we all die with nothing because you have nothing because you're not there. And what about the people that will benefit?
Well, so part of there was a chapter to do with dying with zero also includes that you're going to set aside money for your kids or your family members and stuff. So it was like there was an allocation of that, like 200K that you have when you're 70. 100K of that was actually already in savings for your family after you pass away, and that was actually included as part of your life debt, as it were.
Okay, so it's not just about spending it on yourself.
No.
It isn't.
No,
it also seems like a bit of a position of privilege as well.
That's that's exactly my point. It's speaking for people that have a lot of expendable extra.
That's. So, anyway, we're heads up. We're playing a very big heads up match now for $59,000. Jose Lesta, who was our chip leader coming into our final 9, was down to 12 bigs when we were down to 5. Has indeed made it to heads up.
Yeah, and made it to heads up with what looks like quite a significant chip lead. Obviously, big pot there, holding with the Queen Jack of Spades against Jack 10 of Hearts. And obviously, we have a monetary component to this, $59,000. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, that all-important trophy in the foreground. And, of course, you will be crowned BSOP main event champion, defending the crown, headed into the next event.
Guys, look at these stacks. Come on, who's chipping up out there? It's ridiculous. Yep, everybody's favorite, guys. Heads up poker. Let's go. This is my favorite part, at least.
I'm going to bring up one of my biggest live poker pet peeves, right? So we've done a huge service with big blind antes and reducing the amount of chips that are on the table, right? But then they go to the break, the level before the break where they're going to chip everybody up, and they announce, like, with 5 minutes to go, okay, can you guys start passing all your chips to one player at the table to make the color up easier. This incredibly pisses me off because you've got people handing chips across the table. It slows down those last couple hands.
Yeah,
it's
and
insane.
it ultimately it always happens in the middle of the hand, so it looks like somebody's just gone all in or something, and you're like,
exactly,
oh, God,
exactly. And it's so pointless. It literally serves like all you're doing is saving the dealer a modicum of effort.
If it's like a local weekly tournament, whatever, cool. If it's an EPT, if it's any event of any stature, I think I'm with you. I think it's just do your jobs.
Anyway, rant over.
Classic
Jose,
Sprag.
by the way, what I did call out earlier, $446,000 in total live earnings. Best live cash. Well, I was going to be this one. Previous to this one, November 2013.
Oh, wow.
Won the Madero Master Cup in Buenos Aires for $60,000. So definitely has been playing poker for quite a long time. Has a number of 5-figure cashes, first ever 6-figure cash though, including has cashed the previous BSOP, won several events. So very accomplished poker player, very experienced poker player. So no real surprise to see that they've just done so well in this event, and clearly very good at maneuvering a short stack and picking spots and yeah, done very well.
So right off the bat there, guys. Sorry, Spraggy.
No, I was going to say the only Argentinian in a field of Brazilians.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, we did see João Vieira as well make 2 final tables earlier in the week on Monday and Wednesday's coverage. But right off the bat there, guys, we saw the 10s just shipping the 7 big blinds, which I actually think is probably a considerable mistake at this stage. I mean, not a mistake in the sense that it's bad. Oh, there's a shove and a call. But I do think that the 10s actually can still be trapped even as we get ultra shallow there, and I think that is something we want to try and do. We want to maximize all of our moments wherever possible. In this case, it was a shove and a call, and it is a domination situation.
And the shove to Queen 3, not unexpected, certainly.
Oh, my.
Is it always coming 7?
Oh.
Jose Lester spikes the queen. Heart rate spiking as well, because he could well be on his way to a main event title. Just 2 cards to come. 7 always coming.
Absolutely. Deuce of hearts on the turn. Is this really going to be it? I didn't think it was going to be this quick. And the river. It's the Jack of Diamonds.
That's it.
And just like that, we have a new BSOP main event champion. And look at that reaction. I love that. This is what we want at poker tournaments.
Yes.
Actually,
you do indeed
thrilled.
love to see it.
Oh, man. Awesome stuff. Great performance. And what a final table that we've actually covered here, guys. We joined with 6. We're down to just the final winner. Strag, how much is this guy winning?
Well, he gets the $106,000 that everybody agreed to with the chop, plus another $59,000, so $165,000 US.
Incredible
$665 buy-in.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you the scope and the scale of this event, guys. And hugs all around. Looks like they're having a great time. What a way to go. Of course, not just the money, but also the trophy and the title. And that will, of course, bring our BSOP coverage to a conclusion.
I was ready to go for a few more hours. I mean,
we're all locked in. We're having too much fun over here.
Yeah, indeed. Wow, what an event. And don't forget our second place finisher, by the way, Claudio Clodomir Morandini. Again, lifetime earnings coming into this tournament, $47,591. So more than double their lifetime earnings in this cash. So well done to Vladimir as well.
Really lovely to see this from Jose. Just like very emotional finish. And like you say, been playing poker for a very long time. Biggest score previously 2013. Feels like it's been a long journey, more than a decade later, and taking home that win for a lot of money and a lot of prestige.
So, guys, that is going to be a wrap for our BSOP coverage, as I said. And also, don't forget, that's not the end of our stream year, because we are going to be in Prague very shortly I think I'm flying out on the 9th, and coverage will begin soon after. And we are going to be covering, of course, the Eureka event. We'll probably cover the Eureka final, and then, of course, also we're going to be covering the main event from EPT Prague coming up shortly, and that will be the last broadcast of 2024. Also, additional reminder, guys, the finale of Stars season is happening on December the 1st. That's this Sunday. Guaranteed prize pool of 1.25 million, triple leaderboard points, and a trophy for the winner, hoodies for the top 20. You absolutely must be involved with that, guys, so do not miss it. And that's going to be a wrap, guys. So thank you very much for joining us. I always appreciate you guys' support. Again, like Strag said, if you guys will let us know how you feel about us covering more international events like APPT and BSOP, we'd much appreciate it. But we're going to sign off now. So from myself, Nicholas Walsh, from Chris Stragalis, and Senor Spraggles, it's good night from Sao Paulo.